Hmm. So this is how the live feature works. Interesting. All right. Hmm. I wonder how I can share the link though. Hmm. Let me see. Let me see how that's gonna work. Okay. What if I go on my other account and look for my? Okay. Let me figure this out. Hmm. Ah, okay, there we go. I found the link. All right, now I'm gonna go and share this on Twitter. Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. I have tweeted out my link, so I guess I just wait for people to come in. I'm not really expecting that many people to show up on this live anyway, but just enough. Oh, oh, people are coming in. Oh, wow. Hello. Uh, all right. Uh, I'm sorry if I look a bit rough. It's because I am. I woke up like maybe like just over 30 minutes ago. I actually came back home at 5 a.m. and I went to sleep at like 5:30. So yeah, I was out last night. It was a Halloween party. I stayed way longer than I should have. And I don't know why I didn't leave earlier, but I had a good time. Anyway, I don't know if I'm slightly hungover right now, but it's fine. It's fine. I've had worse. So I'm just trying to do this live stream and then have somewhere to go like at like maybe 12:30. So I'll try not to make this too long. Um because yeah. We've all been there. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, it was not my wisest decision to do all that because I was going to just go to bed at 5 once I came back. But the thing is, I had makeup on and then I had to remove all of it. And the thing is, I would have been fine with that. But then I'd been like sweating all night because we were at like the club and whatever. So I was like, you know what? Let me just go shower. So then I showered and then that took a bit long. And then I ended up finally going to bed. So I truly agree with your position in that video, and so I thank you for voicing it out. I hope a lot of armies and fans will be able to watch that video. Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a really, really big project for me to do that. It took a lot for me to actually, you know, be able to create such a thing because me, like when it comes to projects that big, especially for things that I'm unfamiliar with, it's just oh man, I like the amount of stuff that I had to teach myself to be able to do this video in the first place is ridiculous, but we'll get into that. Um, I think I might just start now because again, I'm kind of on a time constraint. So, people who will watch the replay, they'll watch the replay. So I think I'll just get started with what I want to say. So I kind of just have like a general outline written down here, like of what I wanted to say so I don't forget. So if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notebook just to remember like where exactly I'm supposed to be. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about in terms of the making of this video. And and so I guess the first place to start would be the conception of the video. And the conception of the video, a lot of people will be shocked to know just how long this video was in the works. So even though I opened my Twitter account for my YouTube channel in like what, December of 2021, I had actually been planning the video for a lot longer than that. I would say the first inception of this video, or at least like the outline of this video, came around in, I believe it was February of 2021. So like almost 3 years, I would say like 2.5 years now, is when I first decided that I wanted to make this video. I don't even remember what like prompted it. I think I was, oh, I remember. So I was at home and like I was it was just like a really dead time and I was incredibly bored. And, obviously, me being bored, I was on social media a lot more. And I think just from being on social media, I just kept on seeing solo stands and, the types of things that they were saying. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, and I would keep talking about it on Twitter about how insane solo stands were. And, we would have these talks and then, maybe my tweets would get likes and then the conversation gets buried and then I have to repeat myself over and over and over again and I'm like, I'm tired of repeating myself. Like I need to just say this out in like one big swoop and then never have to say anything again. And that's partially why I had that podcast with my friend Delilah. A lot of things we say on there are, to help people understand discourse in the fandom and everything. But also, it's so that when we're talking about these issues, we can say it in a way that's like easy for us. And then after that, we don't have to say anything else. And so that was kind of like the goal. I'm like, I need something where people are able to access the conversation, but then it's in a place where it's like archived, where it's easy to find. Because, in order to find my conversations about solo stance on Twitter, you have to like look up my username and then certain keywords in the search engine, and nobody has time to do that. And even if they did, nobody cares to. I know I wouldn't be that bothered. So and especially because like conversations on Twitter can get so confusing, especially when you don't know context. So I'm like, okay, something has to change. So that was when I started getting to work, February of 2021. And I just started writing down the outline of it, which is actually in the same notebook. This notebook is a notebook that I'd actually got for just like writing video ideas. Well, I didn't get it. My friend got it for me, but eventually this is what I use the notebook for. It's actually a BT21 notebook, by the way, if you're wondering. This is what it looks like. um it's really cute. And then the pages, they have like at the top, I don't know if you can see it, but like they have the characters on the top of the page. It's really cute. And so if I like flip a few pages back, I actually have the very first outline I ever wrote of this video. Um, Let me see, where is it? Because there's also like another video that I wanted to do like ages ago, but it got put on a back burner. So that was actually like the first outline I have in here, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, so like you can see here, these are like all my notes is to like all the sections that I wanted to talk about. There's like part one, what is a solo? Part two, true harm of solos and everything. And then like I came with like examples and stuff like that. I'm sorry if it's like kind of blurry on camera, but there was just like a lot of stuff that I had written down. And it was, how many pages is this outline? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. It was like a 9-page outline that I just wrote by hand on my notebook. And then eventually, as I've talked about, as time goes on, then it gets like really difficult for me to keep. It got really difficult for me to keep the examples that I originally had because like they were just getting so out of date. And so I ended up rewriting parts of the outline. And The second part of the outline is here as well. Like you can see here, I had like a rewrite thing. And so I rewrote like big chunks of the outline. And this was maybe like, was it earlier this year? Was it last year? I think it was earlier this year. I can't quite remember. If I look back on my tweets, I'd probably be able to see. But yeah. Um, so that was my outline that I came up with. And the original drafts, like part one was so different. It was so different. Because the examples that I gave for like, for example, like victimization and stuff, um, it was a lot of stuff that was happening like very recently. So like examples from 2020 of like there was that incident with Dynamite where Jin solo stands were kicking up a fuss saying that, oh, Jin was done dirty for this song, like you guys didn't give him enough lines. And then somebody fabricated that video of him like reacting to like how little parts he had, and then that whole thing blew up. And then people had to then backtrack because they were like, guys, like if you watch the video, see that like this part is like totally fake. This person like made up a scenario to go with what like how he was reacting in this video. And that whole thing was just crazy. And that's what eventually led towards like the truck incident. And in my original draft, the truck incident was actually way more discussed than I had done in the final version. And I had only briefly mentioned like the truck in the final version, but like in my first rendition of this outline, it was a much more prominent example. But then I felt like it was a bit too out of date, so I kind of scrapped that. I also talked about like there was another truck with like Jimin solo stands as well, and like I was just gonna go into like those truck incidents in general, and I just felt like I was like, I would much rather prefer like a more relevant explanation. Hence why I started going towards the solo projects like Jack in the Box, Indigo, and all that kind of stuff because it was just so much more relevant towards the time. And also, like, they were very, very prominent points where solo stands were gaining foothold into conversations. And that was like one of the times that I truly saw a shift in like the amount of power that they're holding, because it got to a point where like even people who I would consider armies were sitting there agreeing with like solo stance about some stuff. And I had to like actually block people during that time. And I know other mutuals who also had to block armies during that time. And it was just crazy. Oh, I'm so glad I brought this water. I'm hungover as hell. Um Anyway, and then there was some other examples that I had here, and a lot of them were kind of based off of like things like discussing like line distribution and whatever. Because line distribution was so much more of like a common like problem that solo stands used to complain about back then. But now these days you don't really hear that, especially because the members now have like more solo projects, and so that ended up getting scrapped as well. Um, and there was also a couple incidents that I had talked about in things like the victimization examples where there were some like run-ins with like news articles and the way that they were like reporting BTS and stuff. And the thing is, nothing was like really wrong with the articles, but like solo stands would like nitpick and stuff. There's just like a bunch of things that like they would complain about, but then eventually I'm like, I think I need to go for something a little bit more impactful, something that is directly affected the boys in a way that like these examples haven't. And as we've seen with Jack in the Box, that was an issue that directly reached J Hope and then made him go back on his creative decision to leave the album CD list. So I'm like, I need more examples like that, which is why I changed like a bunch of the examples that I had used. And I don't know if anyone remembers, but originally when I had done the original version of the script and I had finished it, I had timed myself actually recording it, and it got up to like maybe 30 or 35 minutes, which is so hilarious given the fact that my final version is now basically like an hour and a half. So a lot of things got added, a lot more detail was added, and just so many different things changed. And so, yeah, I don't know how I ended up with an hour and a half video essay, but this is just the way life is. But we move. Anyway, so now talking about the recordings of the script. the initial recording ideas I had, it was actually really difficult to figure out how to record this because, as somebody who was like very new to YouTube, I was like trying to figure out my like editing style and my preference for stuff. And so I was like, do I show my face in this video or not? Do I just use voiceover? Like what should I do? And the initial part of this video, the initial rendition of this video, I had actually recorded an intro with my face, but like eventually I just wasn't satisfied with it because during the recording I would keep on, needing to look at my script because I'd be like saying the script word for word, of course. But then like I felt like me looking at the script would like be too distracting, and then eventually I just didn't like the recording. So I'm like, you know what? I won't show my face for this. And I think I might prefer that more. I think it's easier to show my face in things like live streams, but in terms of the actual recordings of videos, I don't think I'm gonna do that. Not unless it's like an army log or something, which is fine. But anyway, there were like a lot of things that I had to consider when recording for the first time, and just things that I never really clocked before, like the pacing of how I'm actually speaking. Like when I'm speaking, how fast am I talking? How slow am I talking? Is this going to be easy enough to understand for other people? And when I was looking back at the final recording that I had of this video, it was okay. I think the recording was fine. I was maybe talking a little bit too fast in the beginning, but I think it's because I felt rushed because of how long the video actually was. That I'm like, let me try and like make it shorter as much as I can, even if it's by like 5 seconds. I think that was kind of the idea that I was going for. And the recording software I also had to think about because I normally used like Filmora 9 before for just like really podcast related things. And eventually I had switched to Audacity. But then somewhere along the way I got a new laptop, and for some reason I just for the life of me I could not understand how to get the quality of the sound to go up, because this was a new microphone. I actually switched this from my previous microphone, and this microphone was a little bit better quality, and the sound quality from it was like better than the first one. The first one kind of had like a little bit of like a metallic twang, which I don't know if you can hear it in like if you've ever listened to any of my older podcast episodes, but like yeah, I just decided to change my mic, and but then for some reason that just wasn't reflecting on the audio software. So then I ended up having to like scrap the first recording of the final draft. And I had to like figure out how do I make this recording the sound quality better. And I remember there used to be, before I got Filmora and before I got Audacity, there used to be this like web software that I would use to record. And so I just on a whim tried it, and the audio quality was so much better. Like I don't think you understand how much it increased. Like if I played clips of like the original recording that I had, that I recorded on like Filmora, or was it Audacity? I don't remember which one, but like it sounded like I was recording from a tin can. It sounded like I was recording from a TI-84. It was not good. It was bad. And so I don't know what exactly is going on with that. I still have not figured out the technicalities. I was tinkering with my settings forever, didn't work, but at least I found a way to get the audio quality up, because that was the thing that I was most upset about. And I'm like, if the audio quality doesn't sound that good, I don't want to release this. But then eventually I was able to find something that had good audio quality. So I'm like, okay, now I'm happy with this. And while recording, like there were just so many things I had to consider. Like, for example, like the clock in the back, I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of there. I have a clock on my wall, and it makes like this really loud ticking noise, and it would pick up on my microphone when I was recording. So even like minuscule details like that, I had to keep in mind. So like I had to take my clock off the wall and then like put it somewhere else so that the ticking wouldn't be picking up on the audio. And like even outside, like if a car goes by, or even because I was recording this in the summer. And so, in the late afternoon when I'd be recording, there'd be like cicadas buzzing outside. Like, even that would pick up on my microphone. And although a part of me is like, wow, I must have made a really good purchase because this microphone picks up even the littlest of sounds, the other part of me is like, okay, if it's doing that, then I have to be mindful, like when I'm recording and what sounds it's picking up. And I have to look out for them to remove them post recording. Even things like me taking a breath while I'm speaking, that was something that I had to mute when I was editing my audio. So like every time I took a breath, I would mute that. And like a lot of people would think, oh, you're, doing too much. But then when you actually listen back to the recording, like it sounds so much cleaner when you remove noises like that. So that ended up saving my recording, I think, and it was good of me to do that. And yeah, so after that, let's see what else is there. I'm sorry, I'm looking down at my outline again. Oh yes, the editing process. So like I said, I was using Filmora. I used a different software to actually record the audio and then export it, but then to actually edit the video, I was using Filmora. Well, it used to be Filmora 9, but it's updated to like now Filmora like 12. Um, and that has been the software that I've been using for like quite a few, like for like maybe 2 years. Probably soon to be three, I would say. Um, and it was a big thing teaching myself how to edit and figuring out an editing style. I remember watching like a bunch of tutorials while I was editing this video, figuring out how exactly I can make it to. I mean, I wasn't trying to make it like an absolute cinematic masterpiece, but I was trying to do enough where it's like, can other people watch this? And even though you can still see I'm a little bit of a rookie in doing that, I still think I did a pretty good job for someone who had never posted a video before and someone who had never really edited either. And like even just coming up with like a channel aesthetic, like cuz actually like in the early stages of me like thinking about like making this YouTube channel, I was going back and forth between names cuz originally one of the original names I had for this channel was something like Pluto's Corner, as in like the planet Pluto. Um, you really did. Thank you. Yeah, one of my original channel names for this was Pluto's Corner because I wanted to do like a little bit of like a play on words from my Twitter username on my main account. So well, if any of you if any of you don't follow me on like my main account on Twitter, then my display name there is 134340 miles from sanity, which is a reference to BTS's song of the same name, 134340, or Pluto, or however you want to pronounce the numbers, but this is personally just how I pronounce it. And so I was going to do something related to that, but then what happened? I think I tried to do that name, but then YouTube was like, actually it's taken, so you're gonna have to figure out something else. And so eventually I was like, okay, like what name should I use? And so eventually what I settled on was AAA Thoughts. And the reason why it's AAA Thoughts is because I actually used my initials. So my initials are three A's. And so I ended up just using that and, putting triple A thoughts because this is just a channel where I'm getting my thoughts out. And that's why if you look at my Twitter layout on my YouTube channel's Twitter page, I mean, you'll see that my profile picture and like the header both look like it looks like a thought bubble. I don't know if you can see it from here. Ooh, yeah, no, I don't know if the screen is going to show that, but if you go to my YouTube page, you'll see that it looks like a thought bubble. And then you'll see that there's three triangles in the center of that thought bubble, and the three triangles represent the three A's of my initials, which is how I decided the aesthetic of my YouTube. And I've decided that I really like the way that I did it because actually the logo and everything for my channel, I drew it myself. So there's this app called Sketchbook. It's like a art software. it's like free on like my laptop. And I remember just like taking one of like the brushes that kind of looks like a almost like a crayon, almost like a very waxy crayon. That's kind of the vibes it gives me. And I just used it and I drew my logo myself. And then that's kind of the aesthetic that I've been using. You'll notice that like with all of my notices on my YouTube page, that they're drawn in this like purple crayon type of material that's like on digital, and that was deliberate. I decided that I wanted to keep that as my aesthetic. I also did that for my thumbnail as well. You'll notice that like in my video, like the picture background that you'll have that you see, the one with like a bunch of purple ones like written everywhere, I also made that myself. That was kind of the aesthetic that I decided on, and it was kind of inspired by there's this channel that I watch on YouTube. Their name is Dream Jelly, and they talk a lot about like nostalgic phenomenon from like the past, like for example like things like Scholastic Book Fair or American Idol, or just like old computer games that people used to play in like the 2000s and stuff. And like her kind of vibe with her channel is that with each video that she does, she changes the background of the video to match the theme of what she's talking about. And so for me, I was like, oh, that's cool. So I wanted to do something like that too, which is why for the solo stand video that I did, I just wrote a bunch of ones in purple in the back because one, aka solo stand, that was kind of like the thought process that I had with that. And so for any subsequent videos that I do on my channel, you will notice that the background will change to match whatever I'm talking about. So let's say that I was doing something like related to, I don't know, the shipping community next. I would do something like related to that and I would draw that on the sketchbook app. So that was kind of like how I decided on my aesthetic. And now, for the actual receipts that I collected for this video, oh my God, that was a whole ordeal and a half because here's the thing. For me to be able to collect all these receipts, I had to be storing them somewhere. And so my original thing was that I had a Google Drive folder where I had like a bunch of receipts related to solo stands. And that was what I used for like my very first rendition of this video. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, it's just this photo file that I named on Google Drive, just like solo/ake. That's literally just what I called it. And I don't know if you can see it, but like these are just like a bunch of receipts that I had saved. And this is for like the first draft of my video that I did. Like these are just all screenshots that I took myself and I saved them. And I've had this folder for like maybe like a year or two. Because I would just continuously like take receipts and just put them in this folder. And then when I had to revise my scripts, then I made a new folder where it just says like revised solo stand receipts. You can see that I'm like very unoriginal with these title names. But like I made another folder with the updated examples and I just added in all of the screenshots from all of the tweets. I found all these tweets myself, mind you. These are not like me like looking at someone else doing the work for me and picking from their own receipts. No. I went out and I did all of the research for this and I screenshotted all these accounts myself. And then I added all of the evidence into this folder. It was a very, very long and arduous process because then I had to match up to avoid confusion and to avoid me losing receipts. I then had to finish the script and then add the receipts in chronological order of when I was talking about them in my video. So I started off with like the victimization examples, then I went to infantilization, so on and so forth until I got to the top of the video file. And so yeah, I had to do all of that. And then on top of that, I was originally using okay, so there's this app called Odin where before when people were really frustrated at like Twitter not being able to like organize bookmarks, they were like, "Oh, here's this app that we made where you can organize bookmarks on this third-party app or whatever." And I was using that. I don't want to use it anymore though because now like you have to have like a paid subscription to have like more than 100 of those. But before when I was using it, it was free. So, like the entire thing was just free of charge. And so I eventually started like looking back at like stuff that I had saved there to see if there was anything. But eventually I scrapped the idea of using Odin. In fact, I actually need to cancel my subscription on that. It's like a dollar or two a month, but even still, it's like I don't want to give them money anymore. So I have to cancel that subscription soon. But yeah, that process of finding receipts, it would take me like weeks, especially when new information was updated regarding these examples. Especially because, like, for me, because I picked such recent examples, like, for example, Jack in the Box and Indigo and stuff like that. So, new information was like constantly coming out about it. So, when it came to things like that, I would always have to like go back in and then just like re edit the folders and stuff like that. And it took a lot of time, but it was worth it. Because it meant that I had everything in one place, and it meant that I, for sure had the information that I was looking for. Because with this video, especially when it comes to something like solo stands, I wanted to make sure that like for every example I had like the genuine evidence that this is something that happened. I don't want people coming into my video and being like, oh, you can't just say that this happened, like where's the receipts, where's the proof? No, I had the proof. I looked for everything myself. So that's why I was very, very particular about like having all of this evidence, and being able to use it when possible. Um, and so, yeah, that was pretty much like the editing process. It was really difficult to teach myself how to do all this, and figuring out what the best editing style was, because originally like my editing style was just all over the place. And I had to like just consistently like keep re-editing like my video early on until I got to an editing style that I was satisfied with. But eventually that happened. So I guess that was good. Um, and then, okay, so next part of my outline. Ah, yes, why did it take so long? So, like I said, this video was over 2 years in the making, two and a half. Let's see, February 2022, February 2023, and then add, yeah, so 2 years and 8 months is basically how long it took for me to get this video from conception to actually published. And the reason why it took so long, well, there are multiple factors actually. Busy schedule, obviously. School is probably the biggest thing. Because I was in the middle of, looking for programs to do, like certificate programs. Hello, everyone. Yeah, so I was looking for like programs to do, and I was doing a certificate program in 2021. And that was around the time that I was still like tinkering around with the script. So then that got put on the back burner, but then I finished my program, and then I started a master's program literally last month. I'm literally 1 month into my master's, and so like there was just like a lot of stuff that had to happen. Also working, I tweet about it sometimes on my main, but I do help my mom out at her store because she's a fashion designer. She does like wedding and evening wear. And 3 times a week now I'm helping her at her store, in addition to doing my classes and other types of things. So sometimes like when I have free time, I'm doing like assignments, and then eventually I have to go to the store and other stuff. And then also my family was doing like a lot of travel, so like I just got very preoccupied with that, and just other personal projects in general. And then obviously like there were other things that happened, and just because of all that stuff, it just led to like this one time where I just had this like huge burnout, and I just like kind of dropped the project for a long time. And I wasn't even sure when I was going to pick it back up, and this was like sometime maybe like last year. Because there's a point in time where I was just like really really unsatisfied with how it was turning out, and then eventually like I'm like, I was thinking about re-recording like the entire thing, but I didn't even know where to start. And just the thought of having to like scrap it and start all over again, like just really frustrated me to the point where I was like, oh, like I don't know if I can do this right now. And that's why I ended up dropping it and then coming back to it. If you scroll down far enough on my YouTube's Twitter page, like you'll see that there's a point in time where like there was like a big gap in between like the tweets I was making, and that gap was like all of that was just burnout. It was all burnout. It was so bad. But eventually I did get back to it and I tried again and I persevered this time and now I've posted it. So, well, I mean, I guess a round of applause for me for actually sticking it out because it was tough. I'm the type of person that gets overwhelmed very easily, especially in the face of big projects. And this was like really a test of like my capabilities. And so I'm at least glad that I was able to get it out. And as Namjoon has said, done is better than perfect. So I think that it was just good that I was able to get it out, even if it's not like the best quality or anything. I tried and I got my message across, and that's really all that matters. And yeah, with the additions of like extra evidence too, that also meant that like from like the very last minute of like my final draft, I just kept on like adding stuff in. Thank you for the applause. Um yeah, like the addition of like extra evidence just meant I had to like keep on like adding stuff into the script like up until the very end. And I think the when I finished the final draft of my script, it was maybe like February of this year. So it'd been like pretty much exactly 2 years since I had decided that I wanted to do the video. And then by the time I had finished the final draft to get sent for revision, then yeah, it had been 2 years. And like I said, I tweeted about it on the day that I dropped the video. And I don't know if anyone saw the thanks to messages that I put at the end of my video. But like I said before, Bora City actually was the one who read the final draft of my video script, Bora City Magazine. And I had actually reached out to her like in February at the time, around the time of me finishing it. And I was like, hey, like I'm a really big fan of your videos. And I was thinking about doing a YouTube channel of my own and I was doing a video about solo stands. And, since you're a very experienced YouTuber and, you're really good at, these types of commentary videos, I was looking for a second opinion for my draft. And I was wondering if you could read it. And, she was like very excited to read it. And I was so happy for that. And so I had sent it over to her and then she was able to get back to me with feedback a short time afterwards. And so with that feedback I was able to like fine tune the final draft one more time before being able to record it. So again, thank you to Bora City Magazine for doing that because she really saved me. Because like I was very like, even though I finished it and I was proud of myself for finishing the draft, like I was kind of insecure about like just releasing the video and like not having someone else look over it first. And so that's why I was really happy that she was so ready to help me out. And yeah, so she was the first one who ever saw the finalized draft of my video. And so since February, she's known that I was going to drop it. And so yeah, she really saved me on that one. Thank you so much for this great video and your hard work. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys for watching it. Um, and so now the next part of my outline that I have here, the video release. So how did it feel to announce the release date? One thing I thought about when I was releasing it was just I was so nervous to like finally be done with this thing, especially because it was something that I had been working for so long on that I was worried. I'm like, what if I overhype it? Like, what if it's not that good at the end? Because I've been working on it for all this time, and if you've seen like my tweets on my YouTube's Twitter page, you'll see that like I would constantly be like tweeting updates about like where I was at with the script and with editing and with everything. And so I was like wondering, like, what if after all these updates, like it just ends up not being up to par? Like that's what worried me the most. And so when I finally released that the announcement that it was coming, I was like, wow, like I'm actually about to do this. I'm actually about to put myself out there. And I was just really nervous. Um and so like just the thought of having people be like, wow, like she's releasing a video and to have those expectations, I was like, oof, everyone's looking at me like I hope this ends up being good and that kind of vibe. And my feelings up until the 20th, because I released the announcement that I was dropping on the 6th of October. And then it was that 2 week waiting period before I finally dropped it on the 20th. And so, as I was waiting for that to happen, like there was just so many things that I was doing, like trying to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to post this? Like, what is the protocol for like posting YouTube videos? Because again, I'm a newbie. I'm an amateur when it comes to YouTube, so I had to figure like a lot of things out. That was very brave. You did a great job. Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, but like, yeah, I had to figure out like a bunch of stuff because again, YouTube just has like a lot of different like rules and stuff that like I'm just kind of oblivious to, as you've obviously seen, because like I said, this live stream wasn't supposed to happen today. It was supposed to happen on Thursday. And I didn't realize that they had this rule that like for your very first live stream, like you have to like wait a certain amount of time before you're actually allowed to do it. And I'm like, that's so dumb, but I digress. Anyway, so like during that time, there's just like a bunch of like last minute adjustments and whatever. Cause I think one thing that I was also concerned about when I dropped this video was, is this going to clash with any potential music releases? Hey, hun, love the video. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I was very nervous that this was going to clash with like any music releases, because when I first dropped it, there was no, like, there was nothing going on 20th of October, absolutely nothing. And then when the date finally dropped, and I'm like, okay, it's happening on the 20th. And then suddenly we get a notification and it's like, oh, by the way, Too Much is dropping on October 20th. I was like, what? Like, I tried like so hard to avoid a music release, and then Too Much ended up dropping on kind of the same day as my video. It's kind of not the same day because it dropped at 7 p.m. on the 19th of October, my time. But if you were in like the UK or something, it dropped on the 20th of October because they were going by like UK time. But just the fact that like I was trying so hard to avoid a music release and they ended up like dropping a music video on the same day, I was like, oh shoot. Because like I didn't want to like kind of take attention away from that, but then I'm like, look, I already dropped the announcement. I might as well just like go through with it. So luckily there was no complications with that. And the day of release, because I originally, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to do like the premiere. I wanted to make it a premiere type of thing where I schedule it and people are able to like join it, almost like a live stream type of thing, where you have like the live chat and like as you're watching the video you're reacting to certain parts. And I wanted to also be present and then like talk to people in the comments and stuff. So that was kind of like the plan that I had. But then we had some last minute plans with friends. And so I actually ended up being out of the house for the entire weekend. We had gone to visit some friends in Virginia. And so I just was not here. So actually, while like in the time leading up to the video, I was actually getting ready to leave. Like I was packing like my overnight bags and stuff. And while I was doing that, I was just like thinking in the back of my head, like the release like was just always in the back of my head. And I did have an alarm set for the time that I was dropping it because I still needed to like post the links when it was out and everything. And so luckily we hadn't left by the time I was still packing. So once that alarm went off, I was like, oh, I got to go and tweet out the link. And so luckily I was able to do that and at least track some of the response that I was getting on the very first day, up until I left at like 8 o'clock my time, or no, maybe like 9 o'clock. And then we went to go and spend time with our friends. And like I said, we were gone like the whole weekend. But in the times where like there was nothing happening, I would be responding to the response to like all the comments on YouTube, which was like really nice. I wasn't actually expecting that many people to watch it on the first day. But when I saw that it was actually like getting quite a few comments, I was like really excited because I was like, even though I intended for like people to watch it and I wanted a lot of people to see it, I was trying to like kind of lower my expectations because even though like I have presence on Twitter, that may not translate to YouTube. And so I was like trying to be mindful of that and be like, look, if it ends up that you get like 100 views in like a month, then so be it. At the very least, 100 people watched your video and learned something, and that's something to be proud of. But then, as you know, like the amount of response I got from the videos so far has been ridiculous. The last time I checked the view count, it was like it was like a little bit past 5,000, but now it's like 5,600. And I think that was like maybe like a few hours ago that I checked. Probably before I went to bed, I think. But yeah, like there's just so much more response than I ever expected, and it's kind of insane. Um yeah, so that's what I was doing on the day of release. And there were just so many good comments that I received. And so I thought that I might want to actually go through like a bit of the response and then talk about like some things that I hadn't mentioned in my video. Because I remember when I had dropped the video link, there were people who were like, "Oh, I understand that you didn't have like that much time, but like if you were able to like say more, oh, it'd have been great if you had mentioned this." And I remember there was a couple comments here. I'll read the ones in Twitter for on Twitter first. Um so where was it? I'm sorry, like I'm trying to figure out where exactly it was. Aha, here it was. So some points that I had not mentioned in my video simply due to like time constraints. I'm not about to sit here and make like a 2-hour video essay because I'm just not built like that. But some points that would be great to mention now are things like, for example, the idea that BTS never acknowledges solo stands, even though it was kind of implied in my video, like the fact that like BTS just doesn't acknowledge their existence. I think that's something that really, really bothers them, this idea that like they think that they're the ones who support BTS the most, and yet they receive like no acknowledgement for it whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, like whenever BTS wins an award, who's the first name they call? It's armies. It's never them. It's not PJMs. It's not JJKs. It's not Moon Children. It's not Hope Worldians. It's none of that. It's armies, because there's only one fandom and one fandom only that supports them wholeheartedly, and that's armies. And so I know that for solo stands, it must be so frustrating at the fact that like they just do not get recognition for anything. And that's why a lot of them are like so incredibly bitter, because of the fact that like at the end of the day, BTS will never ever like respect them, especially if like BTS ever like let's say like like hypothetically they find out one day what exactly solo stands are and they see the type of things that they say. Do they really think that BTS are going to be okay with that, especially with the way that like solo stands consistently disrespect other members of BTS? Like obviously not. Like if BTS ever found out what solo stands did, they'd hate these people. But they think that like what they're doing is so justified that they cannot fathom how their actions could possibly like lead BTS to hate them. And like that's just so crazy to me, how they just don't see how problematic that they are, that they would sooner believe that their favorite member is equally as bitter and delusional and jealous as they are. It's crazy. It's just absolutely insane. And also this idea that solo stands blame the actions of other solo stands onto armies, not knowing that their existence is the problem. And that is a big, big thing, because like solo stands, I've said this so many times, they're so delusional. Exactly, they're just so delusional. And I said this so many times. A lot of what you see in terms of like specific members getting dragged, it's not just like antis from other fandoms that are taking part in that. It's also solo stands of other BTS members. For example, if Namjoon is getting dragged, and you look in you look in the like quotes and replies, and you see like people from other fandoms, you'll also start seeing like solo stands of other BTS members joining in on that. A lot of people think that solo stands respect the other members. They don't. A lot of times with these fan wars, you'll see that solo stands are joining in on them and are sometimes even the instigators of said fan wars between certain members. Like a lot of people think that they just mind their business. They don't. They don't. Not at all. I'm sure BTS know BTS are not the first and only group of solo stands. Terry very early said, "Love us all seven." Yeah, I think in some ways they know, but like in terms of like the intricacies of like the amount of things that they've done, I wonder how much they do know about that, and I'm curious, but obviously I know that it's like a kind of crazy thing to like sort of talk about, and I don't know if like BTS will ever like fully talk about it, and they don't even have to because at the end of the day, they've already gone through so much. You know, we just got news of like that crazy woman stalking Tay and giving him a marriage certificate. Like they have bigger things to worry about. And honestly, this is already like a whole like crazy discourse that I don't even think I want them to get into because just for me to do a video on this, like it was so draining to actually go through these receipts and screenshot them because like just reading through the tweets it sapped so much of my energy. I can only imagine what it must be like for them having to see this in addition to like all the hate comments that they already get, in addition to the fact that the media reports on them like wrongly a lot of times and all this other stuff. Honestly, I just want them to live in peace. I will handle all of the solo stand issues. They don't have to do that themselves. um but yeah, like I was saying, the way that like solo stands go back and forth with each other. In fact, there's even ooh, I just reminded myself of something. There was this one issue. I don't remember how long ago it was. It may have been last month or maybe the month before. But it was something where it was like I don't remember how exactly it was started. I just saw it on the trending pages. Um but it was V solo stands and Jimin solo stands. They were dragging each other's faves, and the way that they were dragging each other's faves was by calling them. Oh, if I say the word, am I gonna get like flagged by YouTube? Oh, I'm trying to think very carefully. Or no, maybe it was demonetized, but I don't have to worry about that because I didn't monetize my channel. Okay, I'll just say the word. But they were basically calling each other's faves pedophiles, um, and they were trending that on Twitter, as in like hashtag PEDO Taeyong, hashtag PEDO Jimin. Like I saw that trending on Twitter, and that's how they were fighting with each other. Like a lot of people think that if like solo stands are fighting, it's to defend their fave. No, it's to drag other BTS members in the most disgusting ways, and with like crazy edited pictures and stuff like that. Like I don't even like know how to explain what I saw, but it was just absolutely ridiculous the way that they fight with each other and the way that they're not afraid to stoop as low as that. And I've seen some crazy stuff about like the way that like and you'll see it like depending on the dynamics of the BTS members as well. Because for example, with Jungkook, obviously we all know how he got into BTS. He got into BTS because he saw Namjoon rapping in a video and he was like, that guy is cool. I want to be in his company. And since then he's always seen Namjoon as his role model. And SMH, I've seen that word attached with the members too many times, and it's truly ridiculous, nasty people. Yeah, yeah, the way that they do that is crazy. But yeah, like I was saying, so because of this dynamic that Jungkook has with Namjoon and the fact that he really looks up to him, you'll notice that Jungkook stands get very, very pissy when you mention anything regarding Namjoon because they are so furious at the fact that Jungkook loves him and respects him and appreciates him. And so like a lot of times when Namjoon is getting dragged, especially because like Namjoon like specifically, like so many other aunties love to target him and like misrepresent what he says or blow things that he's done out of proportion or just be generally mean spirited and nasty and disrespectful and sometimes defamatory towards him. And Jungkook solo stands join in on that all the time. I've seen it. They love to drag him all the time because they hate the fact that Jungkook likes him and respects him as a person and as the leader of his group. So you'll notice that like whenever people are gushing over Jungkook, doing something cute around Namjoon, they're like, "Oh my god, like we're so sick of seeing this man," and blah blah blah. Like they're very bitter and nasty about it. And also they're very bitter and nasty about Begin because as you know, Begin was a song about Jungkook talking about how his beginnings as a musician and how originally he felt like he had no sense of his own, but he was helped by the other members and they were the people who helped him begin as his own person. And like the message behind that song is so beautiful and everything, but solo stands of Jungkook do not like that song because of the fact that Namjoon helped him write it, even though Jungkook was the one who asked Namjoon to help him with the lyrics in the first place. Obviously the song would have never gone to its final version if Jungkook wasn't okay with it, but they act like Jungkook was forced to sing about the other members in his song. And I've seen Jungkook solo stands call Begin a propaganda song. They call that shit propaganda. Can you imagine? Because of the fact that Jungkook was showing appreciation to his other members, they call that propaganda. Like that's just absolutely unhinged to me. Um, how can you stand someone if you don't listen to your fave's words? JK loves Namjoon. Why would they hurt somebody he obviously loves? Because in order for them to even do that, they have to also put up this narrative that Jungkook actually doesn't like the other members and that the other members don't like him either. That's the biggest reason why a lot of solo stands try to make their narratives work. They try to fabricate ideas that the members actually hate each other, and that makes it easier for them to drag the other members because they're like, oh, Jungkook needs to leave this group because you see how the members treat him. You see the way that they're jealous of his success. You see the way that they're doing this, that. So, like, you can tell them that Jungkook loves Namjoon and that Namjoon loves Jungkook, but they'll tell you that actually, no, they don't love each other. In fact, they hate each other. And that's why I think that Jungkook should leave the company and leave the group and everything. That's kind of like their whole premise. Jake would burn that solo stand to keep Ginny warm, no questions asked. Absolutely. And honestly, like they refuse to believe that. But it's things like that where you'll notice that like wow, solo stands just really hate the other members. Everything goes in one ear and out the other one with those people. Yeah, it's just they really like I said in my video, like a lot of like their narratives rely on the fact that they have to just not listen to what their favorite member says or at least not believe it. So I remember there was like back when Jack in the Box first came out and people were complaining about like the CD-less album and stuff. Like people were like, okay, but what if J-Hope actually wanted this thing to be CD-less? And I saw some solo stands genuinely be like, even if they say that he was the one who chose it, I won't believe it. Why? Even though he said it himself, like you're not gonna believe it simply because it's not what you wanted. That's literally how they operate. Like I don't know what else to say. And it's just so frustrating the way that like you can explain things to them and they're just so far gone that they just refuse to listen. Um and so, what is another point to bring up? Oh, yeah, difference between solo stands and casual fans. Because I was actually talking about this on my main account before, on Twitter, I mean, where I was basically saying, like, solo stands are see, so they're standing liars. Yeah, a lot of times, like when you bring up the fact that like they don't believe what their favorite members say, or like or they just think that their favorite member is lying to them. Like I will literally be like, "Oh, so you think they're lying?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't think they're lying. I think that they're being forced to say this, this, and that." And it's like, no, they're not. But whatever you say. You cannot reason with them. Reason is not the base of their love or hate. Absolutely, they're just gone past reason. There's just no way for you to convince them anymore. Like once you're in the solo stand community to that level, normally there's nothing you can say or do to get them out of that, and it's kind of sad. Um, but yeah, like I was saying, so yeah, this idea between the difference between solo stands and casual stands, because the whole thing is that um, if you like if you were a regular person and you found like a BTS member's solo projects or whatever, and you thought, oh, this is actually good. And you kind of just didn't really dig any further, but you still, checked up on that one BTS member. I would consider that like being more of like a casual fan. Because even though like you're not as invested, you're not really like doing anything to like solo stand level, but like if you were actively in the solo stand community, you were only looking at like one member's work and all that, and then on top of that like completely like bashing the other members, that's when you get into like solo stand territory. Sounds like a cult. Yep, it is a cult, that's why. And The thing is, a lot of solo stans swear that they're the only supporters of their favorite member, but at the same time, it's like you literally drag like 95% of the work that he's contributed to. Like the only thing they stream are solo projects of their favorite member. So like take, I don't know, Yoongi for example. If you're only listening to his solo albums and you're not listening to any of his other music, in fact you're trashing on the other music, how do you consider yourself a fan of that? Like you're a casual fan at best and an anti at worst, because there's no way you can tell me that you like or that you support an artist when you ignore 95% of his discography. Because BTS's discography is every member's discography, whether people like to whether people like it or not, especially because they have that involvement. They're writing it, they're co-producing that work. That is their work, and for people to just completely discount it as if it doesn't matter, as if BTS didn't work hard to make that music, it just absolutely baffles me the way that solo stands can claim that they're the only people who support their faves, but then when it really comes to it, they don't. They're not the ones buying BTS albums. They're not the ones going to BTS concerts. And mind you, those are the biggest ways that BTS get that money back. So you're sitting here saying that like your 5 streams of like, I don't know, Jimin's solo work is what's paying his bills. No. If we really left it up to solo stands, because honestly, they don't really know how to stream properly either. Because, like I've said before, like their playlists are so fucking repetitive. This is why we keep getting filtered. If you look at a lot of the playlists that solo stands share with each other, like it is like the same 3 or 4 songs just over and over and over and over. And it's like, well, no wonder Spotify thinks you're a bot. It's because you're streaming like one. And that's why the filtration rate can be so high sometimes, because they just don't know how to stream. If we legitimately left supporting BTS up to solo stands, bruh, BTS would be like every one of them would have an eviction notice right now on their apartment because they can't pay their bills because they're not getting any money with the way the solo stands are supporting them. Um, you wouldn't be in Army's business or solo stand territory if you were just a casual listener or fan. I think that's really the caveat right there. If you were really a casual fan, then you wouldn't even be like remotely involved within this discourse. But solo stands are deep in it. And that's why they're not just casual stands, they're just straight up antis. If you were just a casual stand, you would have no idea about what I'm talking about right now. And this solo stand video that I put out, they would have no idea what any of that means because they're not updated on that discourse. And as a casual stan, of course they're not. There are plenty of artists that I'm a casual fan of where I may listen to some of their songs, or maybe I listen to all of their songs, but then I don't really keep up with that discourse. I'm not interested in the artist's life or anything like that. I'm not engaging with the fandom. Oh my God, why is the sun coming out like this? I'm sorry, but like, there's just like no way that you can call yourself a casual fan if you are into that discourse so deep. The freaking filter rate because of them, I know it's so bad. I remember when I was looking at the layover playlist and they jumped me because I called them chat GPT playlists, but I was spitting facts because there's no way they're gonna have like the same 3 songs over and over again and you call that a playlist. And this is why, like, oh my god, our streams, if it was up to like us, we would do so much better. But because solo stands always inject themselves in, they always like ruin our chances. It's so frustrating. They don't care about their face music. They leech onto their personas that they imagine in their minds. Yeah, that's pretty much it. A lot of it is just projection because they project onto the members that the members are actually like a lot more bitter and disrespectful than they actually are. They project onto the members that they don't actually like the group or the company or their fans. They just project so much stuff about like everything that like I don't even know like how they don't see that they're not grounded in reality. It just I don't get it. Casual fans do not make stan accounts or get into fandom beef. Exactly. If you were a casual stan, you would not be on Twitter like that, fighting for your fave or anything like that. But these people are. To make an account solely dedicated to talking about this one person or this group of people, that is not something a casual fan does. I'm a casual fan of so many artists, and you don't see me making accounts for them on Twitter or Instagram or anything like that. I made an account for BTS because I am a dedicated BTS fan. I'm not casual. I listen to all of their music, all of their solo works. I go to their concerts, or at least try. When I'm not busy fighting for my life on Ticketmaster, but like I go out of my way to support them. That is not something that a casual fan does. They want to be saviors, absolutely. Like I said in my video, a lot of them have a savior complex and they want to feel good about saving somebody who they deem to be underrated. And that's why they don't stand soloists, because soloists don't have to fight for their place. And so solo stands would have nothing to campaign for if they were standing somebody who was just by themselves. You're either a stan or an anti. Exactly. Like obviously being a fan is on a spectrum, but like an anti, like if you're doing all of this stuff on the side, making an account just to be a solo stan, like you're an anti through and through. Um and let me see. Let me go to some YouTube comments actually to see what else I should talk about. Um dun-dun-dun. Oh wait, I'm on the wrong account. I'm on my main account on YouTube. Hold on. 1 second, guys. All right, I'm gonna have a little scroll through and read some stuff. Yeah, there was actually quite a few people on my channel who commented under my video that like, I am not on Twitter, or oh, I'm a little bit newer and I did not know that the situation like was this bad. I did not know that it went this deep. And so I'm glad that I'm starting to see people who are like, I was not aware of how bad the situation was, but like now I get it. Thank you for this video. And I'm glad that I'm able to like teach a lot of people about the true harm of like the solo stand community. Like I remember somebody had commented, what was it they said? They said like the whole topic was like just weird, like informative but weird. And I think that's exactly how I would put it, because if a normal person, like if a local was listening to me talk about this, they would think that I was crazy. They would think that I was insane. But like for me, because I'm so used to like solo stands and the things that they do, this is like kind of like my everyday. Like the solo stand community, like this is just something that I'm so familiar with at this point that like it's kind of crazy that I don't find it crazy anymore. It's kind of like the lyrics of On and Semi Free Part 2, where it's like you got to go insane to stay sane. I'm kind of at that point where like what is crazy to other people is not crazy to me anymore, because I'm already crazy. Like I literally went insane trying to make this video. Um and it's just, I just can't believe that, you know, I can't believe that this is like something that I have to talk about. It's crazy out there. Thanks for the detailed info warning to stay off social media. Oh yes, thank you. That's actually another point that I was going to make. Because somebody had also brought it up how they were somebody who kind of got on Twitter pretty quickly, and unfortunately, like as a younger army was like they ended up following like a couple of weird accounts that they clocked, but then it's like the fact that they didn't have any help in getting into like social media, they were like, "Oh, I almost like fell for it." Um, and that was like another thing where I personally believe that like once you become a fan, oh my god, I'm sorry, it is so bright outside. The sun just keeps on popping up in and out, but one of the things that I had mentioned was that once you become an army, I think it is so much better to kind of stay away from the army side of social media and just spend the first couple of weeks or months or however much you want to spend just getting to know BTS through their own content. Because for me, I became a fan in late 2016, like just after Wings, and I was lucky enough that I didn't really go on Twitter until like maybe mid 2018. That's when I really started becoming active. I mean, I had my Twitter account since like 2015, but I didn't really use it up until like one time in 2017, and that was like my first tweet ever, and I used it to vote for BTS at the BBMAs. But after that, like I wasn't really using my account until like mid 2018. So I basically had that entire year and a half to get to know BTS myself through their music videos, their variety shows, through their interviews, and through, other things that Big Hit has put out. And I think that was my saving grace at the end of the day, because once I got onto Twitter and I saw Solo Stan rhetoric, I was able to clock like this is not how BTS truly is, or this is not the full story of the situation that they're talking about. And I was able to correct that information. But not every army has that opportunity to have that time and then go on Twitter after familiarizing themselves with the boys. Because some people will just get straight onto Twitter after becoming a fan and start following army accounts, but then, kind of maybe realize belatedly, or maybe not even realize at all, that these accounts are actually really weird. Because some of them are solo stands, especially when like it starts off as like a local complimenting a specific member. Solo stands will jump onto them because they're like, oh, we have somebody who likes Jimin or someone who likes Jin, and they're like trying to like get to them before armies are. Basically, it's like a race. And that's why I thought it was really important that I do this, so that I can contribute to you know I can contribute my part, so that at least when people are trying to look for information, at least I can steer people in the right direction. um yeah, I think Army should be off social media for a while and develop their own opinions and knowledge of BTS before getting on social media. Absolutely. Like, not even just Twitter, but like everything: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Like, stay away from the Army parts of those before you do anything. Like, just spend your time getting to know BTS by yourself and you will be fine. When I was a baby Army, I almost fell for Jin's solo rhetoric. What helped me was listening to what Jin actually said. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of this solo rhetoric can be debunked by simply just listening to what BTS has to say. And solo stands just don't do that, because that's the only way that their narratives can work, by not listening to them. When I was a baby Army in 2019, there was a lot of things I had to fact check and learn on my own. It was always a confusing time when you're new, even overwhelming, especially now because BTS now has over 10 years of content to dig into, and BTS is very, very active. So I honestly feel for newer armies who are just getting into this, because it can be really, really scary and overwhelming to think about the sheer amount of content that is available for you to view about the boys. Because when I first became a member of the Army fandom, we were only up to the Wings albums, and on top of that, I came in when there was like maybe only 10 episodes of Run BTS. That's how early I came in. Like, we were still at the point where they were like alternating posting between like Run BTS and Bangtan Gayo. Like, it was that early. And my co-host Delilah for our podcast, like when she first became an Army in 2015, there were no episodes of Run BTS. There wasn't even Bon Voyage, I think. Yeah, she was the 2015 Army, so like Bon Voyage didn't exist. Like, all of this extra content was not there. And now these days you have Bon Voyage, you have Run BTS, you have Seasons Greetings, you have Memories, you have this, everything. So I can understand why newer armies feel very pressured and very overwhelmed. That's why it's better to just like kind of steer them towards like the essential stuff first, like music, and then interviews, and then later on like get into like the sort of miscellaneous stuff, like the variety show stuff. Um let me see. I was lucky to be 2.5 years out of the Army social media. I was falling alone through rabbit hole, and no one could send me bullshit anymore once I got on social media. Yeah, you're lucky, because 2.5 years is a lot of time to get to know them. I started exactly the same way. So many Ake accounts I followed, I was always so angry. I've never been so consistently angry. Yeah, that's the thing. When you start like falling into that narrative, you're always angry because they operate on the idea that their fave is never treated properly. And so because of that, they're always angry because they're never getting what they want. And that ends up taking a huge toll on your mental health. And, it's just not good. And that's why, like, I realized how important it is that you understand the full story and understand the full context. And also, like, even for me, just like dealing with solo stan rhetoric and trying to like unravel it, just to do that is draining for me. And I'm not even a solo stan. So I've been having to like consistently take breaks from social media because it gets heavy. I'm not going to sit here and act like it's an easy task. It's not. It takes a big toll on your mental health, and it's super draining. And it's something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, but at the same time, these conversations need to be had, and that's why I'm having them. um I also think that when you watch their specific content and get to know them as people, you truly humanize them, and thus it makes it harder to be a solo because solos dehumanize them with their rhetoric. Exactly. I think being able to see BTS interact with each other and with other people, and just the way that they carry themselves, like if you were truly like trying to become a fan of BTS with an open mind and an open heart, I just don't believe that you can become a solo stan. because I feel like these solo stands go in with a mindset that they're like closed minded and that they're not going to listen to like what the other members have to say. They're already in this position where they think that their fave is being mistreated by every single person. And so that is the lens that they view all of these interactions. Anything that the BTS members say about their favorite member, they view it in the most negative context that they can and then twist their words. And then that's why they end up jumping the other members of BTS for saying literally nothing problematic, nothing toxic. They just jump them because. Hi AAA. I've been so desperate, real and saying BTS video SAS. It took me a couple days to listen, and I finished it last night. I'm so happy with the depth and knowledge of your work. I subscribed immediately and look forward to your future videos. Thank you so much. Honestly, I get it because my attention span is not that great either, and so sometimes it does take me a few days to like watch a video essay. So thank you for powering through. Um, I'm a latecomer to the fandom, but I've noticed the space on the last year and how the quality of discourse on BTS has absolutely plummeted. Twitter, YouTube comments, etc. Yeah, I think with the beginning of chapter two, like so many things have just been going downhill. And I think that this is why this conversation needed to be had now, because like if we are to survive in 2025, like we need to shut this down immediately because I'm just sick and tired of having these conversations over and over again. Namjoon said, if you want to know if BTS, watch Run BTS. So that's what I did. Well, thank you for listening to Namjoon's words because Run BTS is a perfect way to get into their characters. And Run BTS is just, it's honestly my comfort show. I love watching it. It's so funny. It's so cute. Like, what is there not to love about Run BTS, honestly? Seven men betraying each other for food, like for like a voucher for like a restaurant or something. Like, I just love that type of like chaotic friendship drama. It's just like what other show is there that is like as good as Run BTS? Like they really are the blueprint, especially like within the context of the K-pop industry in terms of like variety shows. Like they really were like, we're gonna make a show so amazing and so funny. And like everyone is gonna watch it, and that's what they did. And I'm glad that they did so because I love Run BTS. And it makes me excited for like 2025 to see like what other things that they're gonna try once they reunite. They still have yet to do Jimin's pole dancing ideas, so I'm really praying. I'm praying so hard that they do it. um, I'm glad you do this. I'm glad a lot of people do stuff like this. I refuse to even entertain them. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just got tired of people just constantly having to repeat themselves on the timeline. So I'm like, I need a permanent place for this conversation to happen that people can come back to. Hi, I'm so happy I'm not on social media, although maybe limited on BTS info. I tend to focus on all the positive things on all seven guys, avoid negativity and stress in my life. Yeah, I think you're doing great. Because like I said, you don't have to be like knowing every single thing that the BTS members do to consider yourself a fan. Personally, I keep up with the BTS members because that's what I want to do. But people don't always have to do that because I understand that everyone is busy. And so I would just say keep up with BTS when you can. And, you know, I think the best thing to do is like if somebody's talking about a situation that you don't know about, like I said, greatest thing is always to ask for context and then to go and look at that situation yourself. So, for example, if somebody's talking about like a video clip, you want to ask where is that video from? Then watch that video in its full context and then form your own opinions based off of that. I think my goal with the video was to equip people with the knowledge that like yes, you have to be mindful of these things, but also use your own personal discernment. Because sometimes, like, not everyone fits into neat little categories and boxes, and you're going to have to use your own judgment in certain parts. And I would hope that with the information that I've given you, it makes it easier for you to do that. But yeah, there's a lot of times where, like, maybe a situation is unclear to me. I'm not quite sure whether somebody's a solo stan or not, so I've kind of had to go out of my way to look for like extra information about that person, use my own personal judgment to decide whether or not I should engage with them and how I should engage with them. I'm still 20 episodes behind. That is no problem at all. We've got so much time before they even think about updating us with Run BTS again. Like, do you know how many backlog live streams I've yet to watch? Like, there's so many that I just need to like just sit down and watch. but I haven't gotten around to it yet, which is understandable because some of them, I'm looking at you, Jun Jungkook, are 2 hours long. So I have to carve out specific times where I'm watching these live streams, and sometimes I don't always get that free time. So are these stands all ages? It's so immature that I seriously wonder. That's actually something that somebody in the comments had asked me the other day, where they were like, "Look, I'm like 60 or 65 or something," um, and they were like, "Yeah, like I'm in my 60s," and I'm just thinking like there must be like there's no way that like somebody my age is doing this, right? Like how old are these people? Are they young? Like what is the age range for solo stands? And the thing is, well, it is very much possible that there can be older solo stands because I've seen some solo stands in like their 20s and 30s. I would like to think that some solo stands are just like, well, at least most of them are like really, really young because the way that they talk about business and everything, like business, like the industry in general, I would like to think that like a lot of them are still in school and have no idea how this thing works, because like the way that they just talk about like jobs and contracts, it's like you sound like you don't have a job and therefore you have no idea what you're talking about. And so like because the thing is like for example with the shipper community, because there's like a lot of overlap between like the shipper community, the solo stand community, and the manti community. And typically what I see with like shippers is that a lot of them are super young. And usually like around like high school age. So I would think that solo stands are probably like similar in terms of like their demographic. Although I think it's still very possible that you can have older solo stands, the same way that it's possible to have like older shippers. Because I've seen some really weird people in the shipper community that are like 50 and have been like sexualizing some of the members since they were teenagers, and it's just like very gross. So that's pretty much my assumption, but obviously take that with a grain of salt. I just wanted to say hi there, miss seeing you, thank you. But yeah, like I think that if they're younger, it makes it more scary because it means that you've like these solos are targeting people when they're at a very susceptible and vulnerable age. And usually by then, like once their ideals are fixed, it's pretty hard to undo them in adulthood, which is why it's so important that you have to undo that mentality when they're young. Anyone that I see talking about the intricacies of contracts and business negotiations in ways I know don't make sense automatically ignore. Absolutely. Because it's clear that they don't know what they're talking about. The way that a lot of these solo stands talk, it's like, I know that you've never had a job in your life. I know that you don't understand the music industry. And I know that you have no idea what these types of contracts would entail. And like the way that they just talk about everything, like you just know that they have absolutely no idea what's going on. And it frustrates me. Um, and so yeah, like there's just like a bunch of stuff that I get frustrated thinking about like the way that like a lot of these people are just roped in. And they were pretty much people who wanted to be armies and were just led down the wrong path. And a lot of them are young. And it kind of makes me sick the way that solo stands are just polluting these young people's minds the way that they are to be these bitter, hateful people that basically parrot abusive rhetoric. And I don't think people understand like the true damage that that is causing, like not even to BTS, but to these young people who are so susceptible. Like they're literally getting targeted online for this type of stuff. Like I don't think people understand how crazy that is. Like imagine like if you had like a 13 or 14-year-old child and suddenly they're being dragged into a cult like community like this, and suddenly you see a change in their behavior, they're angrier, they're snappier, they don't know how to critically think for themselves, and they think that they know better than everyone else. Like imagine like if you had a child and you saw that switch in them real time, because I guarantee you that like the behavior that solo stands do, it translates offline as well. Like I could just only imagine like as a parent how I would feel if like my child was going through that and I had no idea what they were getting into online. And I think that's also a way that I feel like parents need to like just check once in a while what your kids are doing. And if you see a change in their behavior, you maybe want to check what they're doing online and the type of communities that they're in. Because this is just like more of a general problem that I've seen, where like, some kids will get into like some crazy forums on like things like Reddit and 4chan and all that kind of stuff. And their parents might not know. And then by the time that they get to it, like their kid, like it's already too late for them to be saved. And it's really, really tough. Um, Now people are attacking Tay and JK. Fear something will happen to Jimin. Honestly, at this point, people will always attack them, and I will always just be so mad at solo stands because I know that they're part of it. That's why children shouldn't be on the internet unsupervised. Agree. Obviously, don't be breathing down your child's neck, but at the very least, be aware of the sites that they're going on and how they operate. Because the worst part is always like, you just have no idea like what they're using and how it works. And then you don't know how to prevent them from getting into harmful situations. So I would say don't let your child on anything that you yourself do not know how to navigate. If you don't know how to navigate Twitter, don't let your child go on Twitter, because then how are you going to tell them how to avoid people on Twitter that are like this? Speaking of context, BTS doesn't exist in a void. To me, solo stands, haters, mantis, etc. isolate the member from the real world and build a fantasy around them. Exactly. That's exactly how it works. And that ties back into like the abusive rhetoric and language that that people had noticed that they were using. And I think that a lot of it has to do with isolation, completely making it seem like those BTS members are alone, completely alone, and that's how solo stands are able to project onto them. I watched a previous video on this channel, very informative. Do you think all these sub fan groups will tone down once they go into the military? Um, I want to hope that they will, but at the same time, I don't know, because solo stands, they've been around long before BTS started chapter 2, and I just think that chapter 2 has allowed them to get louder, and maybe once they go into the military, they'll realize that BTS are actually aiming to reunite with each other, because that was another thing. Like Jungkook solo stands were trying to make it seem like Jungkook was not going to the military until 2028. And I was like, be so for real. Like, why would he not go during chapter 2 when everyone's on break and instead go when they're reunited, and then he's interrupting his whole schedule just to go? And he's gonna be like, what, the only one who hadn't enlisted? Like that just sounds very stupid. And I said as much, and then they jumped me for it. But anyway, um our age, I see a lot of older solo stands and shippers, and to be honest, that scares me more than the younger people. Like the older ones always feel so predatory towards the guys. I'm scared to think of their influence within their own spaces. Yeah, the solo stands and the shippers that are like older folks, and they're targeting like very young kids, literal kids, as in like these people are 14, 15, 16, like these are babies, and you're targeting them at like age 30, 40, 50 to, be parroting your harmful rhetoric and just like completely molding them into how you want them to be, and just teaching them to bully and harass other people. Like that is absolutely insane. Like how you as a grown adult, like you should know better. Like it's one thing if you're a kid, but as an adult you should know better. And the fact that they're doing that, it makes me sick, because like you're literally preying on these kids. And it's just so sad to see the way that these kids are, like the way that their behavior like completely switches after they are in these communities with all these older people who swear that they want the best for them, but then they don't. Stalkers always come back like drunk dialers when they're bored. Yeah, it's always annoying. Like, eventually, I feel like they'll come back, and it's just so frustrating. We tell ourselves that it does not matter if you have an army membership. With everything going on, membership should be mandatory to enforce fandom rules. What do you think? I've always thought about the idea of like army membership, and just like, I don't know, because like at the same time, while I understand that like being a fan is on a spectrum, I also do think that like, oh, it would be really nice to have like some clear cut fandom rules. We still do. We have fan etiquette on like Weverse and stuff that, Big has posted themselves. But I think like there needs to be like another push for something. I don't know what that might be, but I just feel like we need like another push. Um, and yeah, um, let me see if there's anything else I wanted to touch on. Um, dun, 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 dun. I'm sorry, I'm just looking through like comments under my YouTube video. That's why I'm looking down. Um, mm, mm, mm. Hmm. Yeah. Oh, there's also somebody who was talking about how like um when they were looking at like solo stand rhetoric, because they were somebody who I think like fell for it early on, and they were talking about how like um they were tricked into believing that like the members were like being mistreated, and then when they came to, they realized that they are being mistreated, but not by the fandom or by the company or the other members. They're being mistreated by like people like media outlets and other K-pop companies like trying to slander them, or other fandoms trying to bring them down through smear campaigns. And I was like, wow, like when you put it like that, it's like, yeah, they're mistreated, but not by the people that solo stands are trying to make you think they're being mistreated by. Because like a big example of this is when like solo stands try and drag armies for like, oh, this song only has like a certain chart position on like the billboard, and it's because like armies didn't try hard enough. And it's like, no, it's because Billboard changed the rules last minute, and now suddenly like a bunch of sales don't count, and so now we've had to start from square one. And that's like another thing that they do. They don't like to contextualize situations, and so like something will happen, and then they'll just blame it on like Army's lack of effort slash support, instead of understanding like the circumstances that we were in at that time. And that's like another way in which they trick people into thinking that like we don't support the members as much as we think we do. There has to be something within the fandom with some professional experience to give us some advice, perhaps. Yeah, I've seen like multiple attempts on that, like of people trying to sort of direct newer armies towards like some fandom etiquette. But that type of stuff is kind of like hard to find on Twitter. So like there needs to be like a more permanent place for it to be. And I don't know how that would work. I'm still trying to think of ideas related to that. Will this live be available on replay? I'm trying to catch this at work and I'm missing lots. Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna leave this live stream up permanently. I will not be private. I won't be privating it after it's finished. I'll be leaving it up. And I think I'm gonna be doing this for like any subsequent videos. I would like to go live and just like talk about like the behind the scenes of everything, kind of like the way that Namjoon does after like every album release. So yeah, don't worry. If you are missing parts of this, this will be up later. Um, I wonder if statistically solos are more present on social media because of the performative aspect and that social media allows. I'd love to see statistics on where Army engaged, including offline. Yeah, I think because of the performative nature of social media, this is why solo stands are able to thrive the way they do, especially on Twitter, where they're able to trend specific keywords and hashtags, because that's kind of like their whole thing. So I would like to think that because of the fact that it's very performative, that's why they're here. And some songs just don't do as well in mainstream media. Other songs will do better with non-fans. That's hard to control as well, I think. Yeah, there's many factors that contribute to how well a song does on the charts that they just don't consider. They just see a chart position, like all they see is the number, and they're like, oh, if it's too low for us, it's because you guys didn't try. It's not because of any other factors that could have very well contributed, but they just like to blame it on armies regardless. That reminds me, when a song doesn't chart well, it's Army's fault. When it was solely the work of the solo fandom. Oh, when it does, it's solely the work of the solo fandom. Yeah, that's true. Whenever like it happens so often where like for example, like when Like Crazy went number one on Billboard 200, like solos were just running to claim credit for that, when it's like that was not you, that was Armies. We did all that. You guys didn't try at all because you guys are not big enough to leave an impact on the charts. But then when Like Crazy free fell like the week afterwards, and that was because Billboard randomly changed like their rules and like deleted a bunch of sales, then suddenly they blamed that on Army's lack of effort when it was so obvious that like we were snubbed in broad daylight. It was very stupid. I support you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, the way that they just love to put blame on us whenever something bad happens, but then claim credit whenever something good happens, it's very telling. It's very telling. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, so yeah, what's the next part of the outline that I had here? Oh yeah, personal run-ins with solo stands. I've had quite a few over the years, and I think my first proper run-ins with solo stands started happening in like maybe 2019. The biggest incident was with Jungkook solo stands back at like the end of 2019. Because what had happened was like I had made a tweet, and it was basically like a tweet where I was saying like, oh my gosh, like I'm so glad that like Jungkook has the other members, because if the members were like bad examples, like it could have messed him up. And I'm just glad that he has BTS and they're like good people and whatever. Basically, like the intent of my tweet was to like basically be thankful towards the members that they were that they were good influences towards Jungkook, because there are plenty of kids in the industry who have bad influences and then get negatively affected because of that. And so solo stands were like, so you think that Jungkook is not his own person and that he would have been messed up if not for the members? I'm like, that's not what I said. But basically, they tried to make it seem like I thought that Jungkook was going to be like a terrible person if not for the BTS members. And I remember, like, I went to sleep when that tweet, um, what he said himself to Yoongi on Shuchita. Listen, if I brought that up on main, I would get jumped again, so I didn't. But like the day that happened, I went to sleep after I tweeted that, and I woke up. The tweet had like maybe like 20,000 likes or whatever, and that was back when my account was like way smaller. So 20,000 likes, I was like, oh shoot. But then when I started checking like my mentions and stuff, like there were like all these Jungkook solo stands, and they're like sending threats and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, what is happening? Like, what did I say? Um, and so then I was like checking to see like what had happened. And when I saw what they were talking about, I'm like, no, 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 like guys, you got it wrong. That's not what I was trying to say. I'm not saying that he's only the way he is solely because of the members, but like, I'm just glad that they were good influences, because if not, then he could have been messed up. And I started like giving examples of like people I know in the industry who were kids and got messed up through bad influences. And they were like, "Oh, so you're saying that Jungkook is like them?" I'm like, "No, I'm just saying that like there are kids who've gotten messed up, such as these people, and I'm glad that that didn't happen to Jungkook." Like they were just going out of their way to like kind of twist my words into like something that they were not. And then it got to a point where they like brought up a tweet of mine from like 2018, where they basically misinterpreted what I said as like calling Jungkook, what was it? Calling him, what was it? Oh, calling him privileged. Sorry, I had to remember what exactly it was that I said. They were like basically trying to say that I was calling him privileged in this tweet, and basically the tweet was me talking to a JK solo stan, because they said that like Jungkook, they weren't like he deserved more lines, and that like Big Kid was like underutilizing him. And I'm like, look, I love Jungkook as much as the next army, but like Jungkook is not being underutilized. He's literally the main vocalist, and like he's already getting like the maximum amount of lines. Like he's not underused. And then like another army was like agreeing with me, and so I told them, I was like talking about like the solo stand to that army, and I was like, oh, when you've been privileged your whole life, equality seems like oppression to you. And I was referring to the solo stand who was like like who was privileged enough that they don't have to worry about Jungkook getting enough lines, and I was talking about them. But solo stands somehow thought that I was talking about Jungkook, and that I was calling him privileged. But I'm like, but he wasn't the one I was mad at. I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the solo stand. And even to this day, like I've still seen them, like even like recently, like a few weeks ago, they still think that I was calling him privileged. And I'm like, no, that's not what I said. But they didn't listen to me. So that's why Jungkook solo stands still hate me to this day. They've gotten mad at me for like other things recently, like such as like what I was talking about with like enlistment, when I told them that like they needed to be fucking for real and that Jungkook was not going to enlist in 2028. They jumped me for that. And then there was this other tweet that I made the other day where I was basically like, when the Too Much collaboration got announced, I was like, oh, Kid Leroy used something I expected, but like Central C is like crazy. Like the fact that like this is happening is like crazy, and that like Jungkook's networking like is insane. And then they were like getting mad at me because they thought that I implied that Jungkook is the one who reached out to Kid Leroy and Central C and not the other way around, when I literally said nothing of the sort in my tweet. And they were like, "Oh, you're trying to undermine his impact or whatever, and you're being rude and bitter and jealous and whatever. You're always doing this for Jungkook." And I'm like, "What the hell are y'all talking about?" And so I pretty much just ignored all of that. To be honest, most of my tweets that blow up, they're usually muted by the time it blows up anyway. So a lot of times I don't actually like see that in my mentions. I usually have to like manually go under the tweet and like check to see what people are saying. So the fact that they were saying all of that, and I'm like, girl, be so for real. So I muted that and I ignored them. Um, No, there was one. There was also one related to one incident related to like gym and solo stands like way back in like 2020. And basically the context behind that one was this was like right when the Black Swan art film got released, not the music video, the art film. And with the dance company or whatever that did that choreography, like that contortionist choreography. And like there are people, especially gym and solo stands, who were mad that like Big Kid didn't use Jimin for the art film, saying that they were like underusing him and that they were mistreating him, blah blah blah. And so then I was like seeing all of this go down, and I'm like, guys, like you guys are like putting all this pressure on him to do this, but like when this was at the time that also the reaction, BTS's reaction to that art film came out, and like BTS were like, oh Jimin, like you should do something like that, and Jimin was like, oh I didn't learn this style of dance in school. And so I was like pointing to that part where he said that. I'm like, Jimin said that he didn't like learn this in school. So like guys, why are you putting pressure on him to like do this exact choreo when he could probably do something else, but like in his own style that he's more comfortable with? Like he would probably have to take a long time to train for something like that. And then people jumped me because they were like saying that I said that Jimin couldn't dance. I'm like, I didn't say that. Um, I clicked randomly in your live, but it looks like I probably follow you on Twitter because I remember every tweet you just mentioned now. Yeah, you're probably following me on my main account. A lot has gotten down. A lot has gone down in the past few years. But yeah, so I was like, guys, I didn't say that Jimin can't dance. I just said that like he would probably have to train for that specifically. And that may be just time that he doesn't have. So like go easy on him. Like don't be assuming that like he's being mistreated. Maybe he just is just busy doing something else. And people were like, "Oh yeah, you're saying that he can't dance and that he's not capable." I'm like, "That's not what I said." I'm sure if he wanted to train for it, he absolutely could because Jimin is very talented and he picks things up very quickly. But in that situation, I'm like, look, he literally said that he couldn't do this. So like, I don't know why you're coming at me. I'm just repeating what he said. And then Celestine's like tried to come at me and then say that like I was lying about Jimin saying that he couldn't do that, and we're trying to make it seem like I was talking about like another part of that reaction video. And I had to literally go in and point it out. And I was like, no, this is the exact timestamp where he said that, and this is what I'm referring to. But they still think that I'm like lying about that. Like there were so many solo stands in my mentions that I was like, what are you talking about? Um, it's like telling a ballet dancer to do contemporary dance. Exactly. They obviously could if they wanted to learn, but like they would obviously have to train for that, and people were acting like that's not true. They just want the members to do things so they can brag about it. It's all fuel for their fan wars, not for the love of art. Exactly. It's all a pissing contest, basically. And so, yeah, I got a lot of flack for that. And, the same thing with like the Jungkook's incident and the Jimin incident. I ended up like deleting both of those posts at the time because like the negative response was like so overwhelming because at the time, this is when I still had DMs open on my main account. And so, like, I remember, like, for both incidents, I remember just waking up and having like dozens upon dozens of people in my DMs, like, threatening me, telling me to commit self harm and other types of things. I'm sure you can imagine what that might be. And so, like, there was just so much anxiety that I had at the time that I just like deleted those things. And eventually I did post like threads of like clarification as to what I meant, which I never actually deleted. They're still up. But like yeah, it was just a lot at the time, and he did a Swan solo dance in his own style. Exactly, and that's what I was kind of hinting at in my original tweet with that. I was like, he could probably do something and it would be in his own style, but it's just not gonna be this, and I think that's fine because obviously, like, Jimin has his own style, and I don't think that we have to push him to do something that he literally hasn't learned before, because he's already busy doing, like, so many other things, and, like, they were so busy in 2020 right before the pandemic hit, and just the way that people were kind of pushing him to do stuff I just felt was unfair. But yeah, that was like a whole thing. And so that's why like Jimin and Jungkook solo stands are probably the solo stands that are like out for my blood the most because I've kind of been like uh I've kind of been a target of them since like 2019 and 2020. So oh shoot, and even when it's like 2020 when it's 2024. Oh man, it would have been like 3 years. No, four. What? Oh my god, 4 years since the gym and solo stand incident. And then and in 2024 it would be 5 years since the Jungkook solo stand incident. So like literally for 4 to 5 years, these solo stands have kind of been trying to get my account shut down. I don't know. Like basically just tell other people that like I'm an anti of these certain members, but I'm like, how? It was crazy. Would you consider doing a debunked style video for want of a better word, conspiracy theories? It's hard to find the actual truth over past events. Navigating army Twitter is hard. I will put that in the idea bank. Thank you for that. I will definitely keep that in mind for other ideas. Solos are hyper focused to a point that defies logic. Yeah, it's really weird. So weird, actually. And then for V solo stands, I think the first time I ever caught heat from them in a really big way was probably in 2021, I think. I don't remember if it was 2021 or 2020, but basically, there was this time where for V's birthday, solo stands, or at least it might have been like a Chinese bar or something. I don't remember who it was, but it was somebody who was like a big V fan base, and they had been collecting money to do this birthday project where they basically were able to buy out a 3 minute ad space on the Burj Khalifa to like display a birthday ad for V. And if you don't know what the Burj Khalifa is, the Burj Khalifa is actually the tallest building in the world. It's in Dubai. And there are videos that can be displayed like through like I don't know if it's like LED or whatever technology that they have, but like you can display ads on the side of the building. And so when people were walking into Dubai Mall, which is built around the Burj Khalifa, people were seeing this birthday ad of V. And that would have been fine if people didn't like see how much it was, because the actual cost of that ad was something along the lines of like $750,000. Like it was literally borderline like 800,000, like $1 million for that 3 minute ad space. And I remember just looking at it and being like, are we really spending this amount of money for an ad? And I just thought about like that huge amount of money and thought like, what else could we have done with this ad that would have been like a little bit more productive and also been done in a way where it's like, because I'm thinking about like the people that are going into Dubai Mall and maybe looking at this birthday ad, and none of them are really gonna care all that much because a lot of them are locals, and so they're just walking into the mall. And so I highly doubt that like it was worth all of that money just to display it to a bunch of locals who probably weren't looking at the ad anyway. I feel like it was just a little bit of like a flex to other solo stands, like, oh, look at what we're doing with our money. And so I made a thread talking about it. I'm like, guys, like, as much as I don't, as much as I believe in the idea of people doing whatever they want with their own money, is this really the wisest way to spend it? Because it's like, we could have done so much other things with this money, like maybe donated it to a charity for like his birthday, or maybe we could have even like like it didn't even have to be a charity. We could have done something like maybe done like a buying party for some of his solo works. But instead we spent it on a 3 minute ad. And if we do this every year, that's like almost $1 million per year for just a 3 minute ad. I don't know. The math just wasn't mathing to me. And so I said as much. And then I got jumped for it. They jumped me so bad for it. They basically said that I hated V and that I wanted to ruin his birthday. And then they tried to use this tweet out of context I had made about something else where I was like, oh, I wish that we didn't have to be like, I wish that other like fandoms and like other communities didn't see us as just like this big charity bank. But then that was like in relation to like a Mr. Beast giveaway where like people were getting mad at like armies for like wanting to like enter it and then use the prize money for like funding like BTS albums or whatever, like for like those funding accounts and whatever. And so I was like, oh, and they were like, oh, you guys are so crazy. Like, you should just donate it to charity. But then I'm like, we don't have to. Like, I mean, if we wanted to use it for like buying BTS albums, fine. But like, that was what I was talking about, like in the specific context of the Mr. Beast giveaway. And then they took it and then put it out of context and we're like, oh, after you were talking about how you don't want us to be known as like a charity fandom, and now you're saying this about V because you hate V, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, y'all, you got to stop doing this. Um, I mean, there's some clear info and footage up, but there's a lot of hearsay and stuff that's to be read. Yeah. When I say most solo stands are just fans of other groups that pick a BTS member to create drama, very true. I remember when I first joined Army, I saw a video clip of V being skipped over by a fan and had a sad look on his face. It wasn't until months later that I saw the full clip in which he had already spoken to that specific fan and she was just coming back to get something she forgot. It was so manipulative that, and that is when I learned better. Oh yeah, that video. I remember that because even as a younger Army, I remember seeing that video and thinking that she skipped over him and being like, "Oh my god, like that's crazy." Until saw the full video and I'm like, "Wow." So like people were really just like manipulating stuff since the beginning. There are a lot of those proof videos. Yeah, it's true. Um, when I first saw that video last night, today you go live, loved it and need to be said. Thank you very much for watching. Someone said, "Who is we? Who paid for that ad?" Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, it just doesn't even make sense. Uh, yeah, I'm agreeing with all of you in the chat. Like, money that could have been given to like the charities and like causes that he promotes, instead we're using it for like this. I just don't see how that's like I just don't see how that's cost effective. I don't see it. And when I said that, they jumped me. So either way, that's always their end game, taking things out of context. Yeah, that's how their narratives operate, by taking things out of context. There's no situation in which I see them present something correctly in the correct context. Um, wasn't there an incident where a China solo bar pulled back their support for an OT7 comeback because their favorite member didn't get enough lines or something? There was a point in time where a lot of China solo bars who were pulling out for, I think it was B, the B release of the album. Yeah, so I don't know if it was that specific time, but I would have to look into a situation where somebody pulled back because of like lack of line distribution or whatever. While I do in my heart believe that's something that solo stands would do, I will double check that information at some point. The Jibbin plane. Oh yeah, the way that solo stands were trying to pay, what was it? I believe is that they were paying airlines to put like Jimin's face on like the sides of their planes. But it's like, guys, like, are you authorized to do this? And like, you're using Jimin's face, like they're using Jimin's face for profit, and it's like not authorized by like Big Hit. Isn't this kind of weird? But when we pointed that out, like they got mad at us. The best story I ever heard was when Hobie fans built that hospital in his name. That's the kind of thing that Army should focus on, and the guys would feel so proud instead of another billboard. Oh, that reminds me, there was an incident where there was something related to a hospital. I don't know if it's the exact situation you're talking about, but there was somebody who was at the forefront of like that whole thing. And they were actually a fan base that had been blacklisted by Big Hit. And when people pointed that out, then like solo stands were like, "Oh, you're just trying to ruin this project." But it's like, no, you're giving money to do a project. Like you're giving that money to somebody who's already been blacklisted. And I believe the fan base was it Hope Eyes? Hope Eyes 218, I believe was their account. So you can look into that if you want to. I don't know if it's the exact situation you're talking about, but it was something similar. I can't say it, but I really don't like the flexing birthday events. It just feels so superficial. There's better ways to use that money, donations, buying parties, maybe to plan future events. I agree. And that's what I said, but they didn't like what I said. So, and it's funny because like literally later that year, or maybe like the year after, people were suddenly saying the same thing. Like, we need to stop like supporting like these birthday events and like all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is the type of thing that I got jumped for last year. And now everyone's agreeing. That's kind of crazy. But I walked so other armies could run. I paved the way for that one. So people need to run me my check, honestly, because I've been saying this type of stuff and getting jumped for it, only for people to like say the exact same thing the year later and then they're not jumped for it. But anyway, um, and then RM. I usually don't have many run-ins with RM solo stands, but there are two I can think of. There's like one in like 2019 that was so stupid. It was so dumb because for anyone who has watched Bon Voyage season 4, there was that clip of V and Namjoon in like the camper van where like they were sleeping next to each other one night and V was like, "Oh, can I hold you while I'm sleeping?" And Namjoon was like, "No. Let's respect the distance between each other." And so like V was like trying so hard to like get like Namjoon to like cuddle him in his sleep and Namjoon was like saying no. So like I, as a joke, I sarcastically commented under like a clip of that someone had posted on Twitter. I sarcastically quoted not quoted, I sarcastically commented, "Oh, just hold of you, monster." Like, I'm obviously being like over exaggerating, and I don't actually mean that. Like, I thought it was pretty obvious, but then Namjoon solo stans thought that I meant that literally, and were trying to come at me for like calling him a monster because they're like, "Oh, how dare you call him that? Like, you're so rude and disrespectful and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? I was joking. Like, I don't actually think he's a monster. Like, obviously, like if he doesn't want to hold him while he's sleeping, that's fine. But like, I was being, I was being dramatic. I was being hyperbolic, and they just didn't see that. And then there was actually a point in time where like I was labeled as like just a rap line anti in general by solo stands of like both Namjoon solo stands, or it was like Namjoon solo stands, Hobie solo stands, and Yoongi solo stands. All three of them came at me once one time where there's this Weverse magazine article where Yoongi was talking about how like there are some songs that like maybe like don't require like a rap verse, and that like sometimes people will just put them in there. And I was agreeing with him. And so like I posted a screenshot of that, and I was like, everybody say thank you, Yoongi, for mentioning that like not every song needs a rap verse. And then solo stands tried to take that as me saying that like I didn't think that rap was needed in BTS music when that's not what I said. I thought like the whole conversation was just about like Yoongi acknowledging the fact that there are some music artists that like don't like understand that not every song needs a rap verse, or that sometimes maybe he'll maybe switch to something a little bit more melodic so it doesn't disrupt the flow of the song. And like what he said was true, because sometimes there are people who just shoehorn in a rap verse and then it doesn't work because that's not the way that the song was flowing. And then now that you've interrupted the flow, then like the song becomes like a little bit disjointed. And then when you're an anti of the rap line, you're an anti of Jim and Tan JK. Are you a Jin solo? Oh, I have a story about Jin solo stands too. So I'm basically like a solo of nobody, and I'm also a supporter of nobody. I'm an anti of all the BTS members, apparently. But like I was saying, so like they all came at me at the same time and basically tried to suggest that like I hate the rap verses in BTS music when the rapping is literally what got me into the fandom in the first place. I don't know if anyone here follows me on my main account, but if you have, you'll know that the very first songs I ever listened to from BTS were actually the Cypher series. In fact, Cypher Part 4 is playing behind me right now on my boombox. Cypher Part 4 is one of my favorite ciphers, also Cypher Part 2. But I listened to all of the ciphers 1 through 4 like in quick succession in like one sitting. Just one day in 2016, and I was like, yo, this is incredible. I gotta know who these people are. And that's literally how I became an army. So when people were like, "Oh, you hate the rappers," I'm like, "What?" That's literally how I became a fan. Like, how are you gonna say that? And it's these people who've like never interacted with you at all and do not even know any of your tweets beyond what they've reacted to. And they're the ones who will call you an auntie. And I'm like, do you even know who I am? Um, so that was crazy. Yeah, I remember you mentioned that was the story of how you got into the tennies. Yeah, part two is so underrated, literally my favorite. Part two, they went off, and that was the one where they were like targeting B Free the most. Honestly, like oh, man, I could literally just make a whole video on like the ciphers, honestly, because the ciphers are just so good. Like I don't even know how to explain it. Like I just, and the way that you can see their skills progress with each cipher, because like the ciphers would be coming out like years apart. And I think the biggest gap was like maybe like 3 or 4 years. No, sorry, not 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 years between like cipher part 3 and cipher part 4. Um, you should do it, please do. Okay, I will keep that in mind. I would like to do some music related videos too, aside from like just discourse stuff. So I will write that down too. Um, and then what else was there? Oh yeah, J-Hope. J-Hope's solo stands have been on my ass since like the beginning of chapter 2 a lot, because I was like one of the people who's very vocal about trusting J-Hope, and also being like if it's CD list is probably because he wanted it to be that way. And so I've ended up you know, getting into a lot of arguments with J-Hope solo stands since chapter 2 began. Because I hadn't really seen them or interacted with them much before. But once chapter 2 happened and this whole Jack in the Box thing started, I was like on the front lines of like debunking stuff. And because they saw that I was such a prominent account in that, they were attacking me like the entire time. And so yeah, I've been fighting with J-Hope solo stands for like about a year now. Um and yeah, just anything that I say in related like in relation to J-Hope, they're like, "Oh, like you're such an anti, like you don't support him, blah blah blah." It's so frustrating. My BTS origin involves a danger dance practice and specifically their hair being a whole character and dance element. Lol. Yeah, danger. Oof. Danger is that girl. Danger is iconic. I need to do one of like I need to like one day set out some time and just like rewatch like old BTS dance practices because I love like their dance practices are just so good. I love them. And I just need a time to just really dive back into like their older content because I just appreciate it so much. Um and then Suga. Obviously with Yoongi, there was like the whole traditional rap issue thing. And then there was another time, I think earlier this year, where I had a run-in with Yoongi solo stands. Because it was when the Beyond the Story book came out, and I was like kind of reading along. And so what had happened at the time was like there was that one snippet in the book where Jin was talking about how like back when they were first trainees, like nobody really had time to like put like any like to cook any proper food. So like there was a time where like Yoongi was just like throwing like a bunch of shit into the blender and just like blending it, and that was like his breakfast. Like he would put stuff like chicken breast and all this kind of stuff into like a smoothie and just like drink it. And then Jin was like, no, this is not gonna work. So he started like cooking for the members, and that's what he was saying in the book. And so then I kind of like was making a tweet where I was like kind of like relaying like snippets of the book out of context. And so like one of the ways in which I did that was like I don't know if anyone knows that like that meme of like what was it? Like Goofy, the character Goofy as in like the Disney character Goofy, and then like I don't remember the girl, but she was like one of the other characters in like the Goofy movie, but it was her and Goofy in like one frame. That's the meme. And then like it's like her house is like looking crazy, and then he's like saying to her, he's like, "Oh damn, bitch, you live like this." And so like I just kind of like photoshopped like a smoothie into like her hand, and then I was like, "Oh, Yoonjin without context," and like the and like the behind the story excerpt or whatever. And I can understand like now in retrospect how that looks like a little bit insensitive because like I was really more focusing on like the smoothie that I photoshopped into her hand, but then obviously like the house behind her is a mess. And obviously like BTS's mental health back then was not that great. And so like a lot of times like they really didn't have like time to clean their house or like they just didn't feel like cleaning it because they just like were not in the right headspace. And so like I see how like that could have seemed insensitive. And honestly, I was like, okay, like I get that. I'm gonna take it down. But then like after like I clarified, like, oh, I thought that I was just like really focusing on like the smoothie part of it. I wasn't really looking at like the other part of the meme, but like that was insensitive. I got it, like I'll take it down. But then like Yoongi solo stands for like quoting my like apology and clarification. They were like, actually no, you still hate Yoongi and you've always hated Yoongi. And I'm like, no. I mean, I understand that there are times where like I overstep and I cross boundaries, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that I hated them from the beginning. Like that's not a Freudian slip. That's just me making a mistake and owning up to it. And I get that. But like the way that they treat it, it's like if you apologize, they just don't see that. They look past that. And I've seen that for like a lot of other armies where armies will like genuinely apologize if they actually do cross a line. And Solistans just don't care. And a lot of times they will ignore the apology that those armies made, and then like those armies will just forever be with targets on their backs. And it sucks to see that because that's how a lot of really good accounts have left the army community, especially on Twitter. And it's just been really weird to see like phases of like army accounts going in and out, in and out, in and out. And it's like just very it's a really stressful time, especially like now more than ever. Like solo stands are trying to like divide the fandom and like get people out of it. And I think that this is just a time where like we really need to clock their behavior because once they start leave like kicking out all of the good accounts, then they're going to replace solo like those they're going to replace those accounts with like solo stand accounts basically. They get rid of the translators, they replace them with solo stand translators. They get rid of the OT7 member focused picture accounts, then they're going to replace those with solo stand member focused picture accounts. Like that's kind of their whole plan. Um I got jumped by solos for saying y'all shouldn't expect a listening party for every release because not everyone wants that. And I was right. It's obviously his idea and what he wanted. Yeah, they will jump you for like even remotely suggesting that like a member doesn't want the same thing that they want. Mine was the NO lyrics hit so hard at the time. That's what I need to hear the most. Yeah, NO is a really great song. And honestly, like NO, and also So Far Away and Paradise, like those three songs, man, they got me through university. Swear down. This is why I have issues about people bothering the translators. Yeah, like the translating issue is always such a big problem. They're always misrepresenting the way that like army translators are translating BTS's work and like trying to insinuate that like those translators are antis of their favorite member, and it's so stupid. I need to go. Thanks so much for your time today. Great conversation. Let's do it again. Absolutely. Thank you for coming. BTS chart data. I miss him. Oh yeah, BTS chart data. I mean, like I still follow like his private account, but like the fact that like solo stands have been like getting at him so much the past few years and it's been taking a toll on him in this way. I don't blame him for closing his main account, but like the fact that he had to do that is just absolutely crazy, especially given what a pillar he is within the fandom. It is just absolutely ridiculous the way that people have gotten rid of him. Um, let's see. The translators are a vital part of our fandom. We need them so much. Yeah, we need these fandom translators because they are the bridge between us and BTS. If we do not have them, then solo stands will be able to take whatever BTS say and twist it however way that like whatever way they want to and however they want to do it. And there's nothing that we can do about it because a lot of us don't understand Korean. Yes, some of us are learning, myself included, but like we're not at the point where we can refute solo narratives if they're taking control of the translations. That's just not something that we can do, and that's why I think that is super important that we need to protect these translators before they leave. um the army infighting breaks my heart. We need to stick together because there are all out haters out there fixing to drag the boys. The toxic fandom and the solo stands got to save it for a real emergency. Yeah, that's the thing. All this infighting is never for things that matter, and that's why like I just feel like we need to really just come together and remember where our priorities lie. That's all I wish that people would do. um and still is. He made a whole page to generate streaming playlists. That was insane. Yeah, the all the work that BTS chart data has done, like he's done so much even while his main account is closed. Like he's a trooper. He's a veteran, and I respect him for that. Solo peak accounts are everywhere and so normalized in our OT7 spaces. Yeah, that's why I only follow the ones that are like overtly OT7 and also follow like other member related accounts because that makes me uh confident in the fact that they're not about to like say some like dumb solo rhetoric. You always have to make sure that they are not afraid to call out solo stands. And if they try to silence you for even suggesting that they do that, you need to go find another account to follow. And then the last person, let's see, Jin. The only time I've had run-ins with Jin solo stands is like in relation to acting because they're like, oh, Jin has always said that he wants to act, and Big Hit is preventing him from acting. And they're like, oh, look at all the times he said that he was an acting major in university, and like all the times that he said he wanted to act before he got to BTS, and look at how Big Hit is suppressing his talents and whatever. And then you look at the interviews that Jin has had in recent years. I don't remember which one it was specifically, but it was around I think the time of B era where like they were asking him about acting and he was like, right now I feel like my priority is music, so I want to do music. I'll think about acting later or something like that. I'm just paraphrasing, but he basically said that like music was his priority and he's not thinking about doing acting right now. But if you show that to solo stands, they're gonna act like it doesn't exist because in their head they have made up like they've projected what they think Jin's purpose should be onto Jin himself and get mad when anybody, including Jin, refutes that. It's crazy. Jin has also said he's satisfied with doing what he's doing right now and he can always act later. Exactly. Wow, so divisiveness is bigger than I thought. Spellings power something that has to be done ASAP before a total takeover happens. Yeah, it's like super big. Like a lot of people don't realize how big it is, and I think that like once we all realize how deep these issues are, oh, the sun is coming back out again. Once people realize how deep rooted these issues are, is like where we can start with this conversation. Oh, Jin solo stands hate me. A huge fan of his. I'm a Jin biased army and they hate me because I'm always getting on their asses for their obsession with acting. Oh yeah. Anytime you say that like Jin is a musician and he likes doing music, like they get so mad at that. They are also rooting for Big Hit's downfall so that Jin can leave Big Hit and go start his acting career or whatever. But it's so funny because I remember in the behind the story excerpts there was a point in time where Jin was like, "Oh," because there was a point in time where they were like, "Oh, this is like our last shot to make it big, so let's try. And if it doesn't work out, then let's just disband or whatever." And Jin was saying at that time where he was like, "Oh, if we had stopped being BTS, I would have left the industry entirely. Like not even to like a different part of the industry, like acting or entered or like another form of entertainment. He just would have not been in the industry, period. Like he would have left and gone to live like a normal life somewhere else, but just completely out of the spotlight. So the way that people act as if like if Jin wasn't in BTS, he'd be like on all of these headlines and billboards as like the world's most famous Korean actor. The bottom line is that like if Jin like wasn't in BTS, he wouldn't be doing anything. He wouldn't even be a celebrity anymore. And that's like crazy to think about how differently their ideas of what they want Jin to do is like it's just so different to what he would actually do in reality. They just don't know him at all. And they BTS continues to prove it each and every time. And so I guess that pretty much takes care of all my personal interaction with solo stands. So I guess basically to talk about what I've learned from this experience. So with this video on solo stands, I think that like what I learned from this experience is that well, I mean, pretty much like all of my interactions with solo stands is what informed my script. Because I've seen firsthand how they act, how they behave, like their patterns of behavior and everything. Like these 5 years, even though they've been rough, those interactions with solo stands ultimately helped me inform the perspective on this video essay. Um, how can we get rid of them? The way that we can get rid of them, at this point, I don't even know if we can fully get rid of the community. What I really want to focus more on is reducing their influence on newer armies, especially. Because if we can get to newer armies first and equip them with this information, then I think that they'll slowly start to lose their influence once people start clocking what they're doing. And I think that's pretty much where I've decided to direct my attention. Um, let's see. Don't hate me. I love Jin the most and to death, but I have the feeling that he'd start off as a bad-ish actor. Think Chow and Woo, but he's also would 100% improve with every project. I think that like Jin could definitely like do anything that he sets his mind to because he's just a super hard worker. However he decides to like do things, if he ever decides to pursue acting, actually, if he was to do acting, I feel like he would be kind of more of like a love interest type of character. If he would be like in like a romance or a K drama, I would see that. V said he wanted to be a villain. I don't know what that would entail, but he wants to clearly have his villain era, so I would let him have that. But as for Jin, I think he'd be like one of like the softer like lead roles in like these romance films. I would actually really love to see that. So if he ever does acting in the future, you know, just a suggestion for him. How does he feel like he is the least comfortable with the spotlight? He does feel like he's the one with the least comfortable. Oh, I can't read. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm still hungover. He does feel like the one that is the least comfortable with the spotlight, at least before enlistment. Let's see how he is afterwards. People change. Yeah, I think enlistment is probably going to change BTS in a lot of different ways. And so we'll have to see what he's interested in after enlistment is over and he comes back. Especially because once June hits, he's going to be the one babysitting all of us. So we'll have plenty of time to ask him questions. The timing of the Bora Bible was so peak. Yeah, I think the timing of it, yeah, it was very important. Very, very important that we got behind the story when we did. Sorry, not behind the story, beyond the story. It was very important that we got at the time that we did. Especially while BTS are gone, so that like people can stop trying to like twist their narratives. V can be a Sega villain. Oh, I think so too. I feel like I would be so interested to see what type of villain that he would like to be. Right, makes sense. Limit their recruiting new and younger people. Yeah, exactly. Jin is so boy next door. That is so valid. That is so valid. I agree with that. He's so boy next door. If he did something similar to that, I would actually really like that. Um, there's no measure for how much I love that boy, Jin. Yes, I know he's my man. Yeah, Jin, I just I need him back, man. Actually, I'm kind of sick of Lore Bible. I think I missed something. Oh, they're talking about Beyond the Story, the book that came out, the autobiography. That's what they're referring to as the Bora Bible because it's like it has so much important information inside of it. It's like I feel like it should be mandatory reading, honestly. But yeah, Jin, they need to bring that man back because I think he's served enough. To be honest, even after the first day, I think he served enough. Like, I feel like they should have just like picked him up, given him a tour of the facilities, and just like sent him straight back home. I don't understand why he has to do all this serving for his country stuff. I feel like all of the BTS members have served enough. Bring Jin back, bring Hobie back, bring Yoongi back. I don't know what else to say. Like, I don't know why they have to do this, but if I start getting into my opinions on the whole enlistment discourse, then this video is going to be like another 2 hours. So, um, they have their own agenda for a member with total disregard to what the members are actually saying. Yep, that's how they work. That's how they operate. I can see Jin acting really dramatic movie series, tear jerking type. That's exactly the type that I imagine him with. Like you broke my heart with HYYH. Yeah, this is like the type of role that I think would suit him really, really good. Like having some sort of like dramatic, tear jerking story, maybe between him and like another person, or maybe just like by himself. But like, I think it would be like really cool to see that. Jin is a mood. I always said that. Absolutely. When Jin comes back, he's gonna have a lot of time before the reunion. So I do think that he might pick up an acting role. If he does, I'd be happy for him. I would absolutely watch that. Not saying I don't love their documentaries, but I would like a true documentary of BTS from the start with like the truth about their treatment internationally and in Korea. I feel like because Beyond the Story is no, not Beyond the Story, Beyond the Star. Is that what the new one is called? I've lost track of all these acronyms. But I think it's called Beyond the Star or something like that. That documentary that was going to come out on Disney Plus. They said that it was going to start from like the very beginning rather than it being like a tour documentary. So hopefully that has like even more information than like what we got in Beyond the Story because I would actually like to see that. Um, Okay, yes, thank you. It is Beyond the Star. All right, great. I'm glad I didn't mess that up because there are like so many because it was like what burn the stage, uh break the silence, bring the soul, and then this one. You've been amazing touching on these topics for 2 hours plus. Thank you. I tried to keep it short, but yeah, that didn't happen. What's the Bora Bible? They're talking about Beyond the Story, the autobiography. So yeah, like I was saying, so all these experiences that I was able to have through my interactions with solo stands and other armies, and just looking at all these situations in detail and seeing them go down in real time, that is what really informed my entire script. And I also was able to learn my limits in terms of mental health because it was not easy at all having to deal with solo stands. While I say that a lot of people really do have to step up and speak about solo stands, I'm not going to sit here and act like it's easy or it's fun because once solo stands start getting in your mentions and whatever, even if you know what they're saying is not true, just being able to just having to go through all that is incredibly draining, especially like the very first times I ever had run-ins with solo stands because when I first had run-ins with them back in like 2019, 2020, the sheer overwhelming number of them in my replies, in my quote tweets, in my DMs that were sending threats to me and telling me all sorts of horrible things that I then had to report myself and then had to ask other people to report and for like other people just to see like how like just to see how like I was being attacked and everything like that. I remember I had so much anxiety after that. Like literally like that messed up my mental health in a way that I never thought it would. Like as in it got to a point where like if I saw that like the number of messages in my inbox went past 10, my anxiety would spike because I would think that there was something wrong. Like I would see like the number 10 or like maybe like 11 or 12 and think like I'm getting attacked again. Somebody's going to tell me to like somebody's going to like threaten me in my DMs and whatever. Like this is before I've even checked any of the messages. And so like I used to get so anxious just being online because I didn't know like who was looking at my tweets, who was going to message me. And I remember just constantly being on the prowl and being paranoid and everything, and it was not fun. It was so scary for me. And imagine, and like I was lucky enough that I had friends at the time who I was able to talk to while I was taking those breaks. But imagine if I had nobody. Imagine if I was by myself in all of this and I was the only person who was having to deal with this. Like I had no one to shoulder the burden with me. Um I don't even know if I would still be on Twitter honestly if that was the case. Like, because the way that they came at me is a way that I would wish like nobody. Like imagine you just wake up, you have like maybe like 30, 40 messages in your DMs and they're just all threats and you have no idea what caused them or what's going on. Like that was literally what it was for me. And having to read through all of those and having to manually block them and report them. And back then, I was the type of person where I thought that reasoning with them would help. It didn't. And it also made my mental health worse. And so, like, it was just crazy. So I just eventually ended up having to understand that like these are people that are past reason. And um, trying to reason with them is not going to help. It's just better for me to just block them out of my DMs and just work on trying to refute their narratives in other ways that are more kinder to myself. Um, yeah, that's also why my DMs are closed on my accounts as well. Both my personal YouTube account and my main account as well. It's not because I don't want to talk to anyone, but just because like solo stands, the way that they move, I just cannot have that in my mentions or my DMs anymore. Um, yeah. Someone said I'm not made for Stan Twitter. Honestly, I don't blame you. I would vote for Break the System for the next documentary after the name BB destroys itself. I agree. Because after Billboard is like, I mean, Billboard is going to trash right now. So if they had like a documentary called like Break the System, that would be so cool. 100% agree. I'd love to see Jin back, but he's done such an excellent job that maybe they can't afford to lose him. Elite soldiers aren't super easy to come by in the US military, probably SK too. Yeah, because a lot of people fail to realize, or at least just don't realize enough, that BTS are like athlete, like they have the build of athletes because they be dancing. Like they dance all the time and they're constantly exercising to keep themselves in shape. Like BTS are like much fitter than the average citizen, I would assume. And so I would assume that like when they actually go into the military, like they're passing these physical exams with like flying colors. So I'm sure that like they're begging Jin to like stay in the military. I mean, obviously, he would have anyway. It's like mandatory service, but like I know that they really want him in there. Um and I understand why, cuz BTS are built. Like every one of them, they're built. They're crazy. And imagine what they're going to look like after the military. That's going to be an interesting experience for everyone. Um let's see what else. Honestly, I do not have the temperament to argue with them. My mentality due to my past is now that anything stupid said, I will ignore. And if you argue with me to be wrong and strong, I will ignore you. Honestly, yeah, fighting with solo stands is not for the faint-hearted. And honestly, if I didn't have such a duty towards the fandom, or at least feel like I did, I wouldn't even be doing this. But I just feel like it has to be said. And so this is why, even though I really don't want to, I had to drop this video. I felt like I did not have a choice. Telling people to harm themselves when they don't agree is what takes me off. Yeah, they do that a lot. Like that's kind of like their go-to. They love to tell you that in the threats and like your DMs and stuff. And like even though they swear that they don't condone it, they really do. They always do. Um, for me, the fandom is my BTS group chat with a handful of friends. When you come late and are a bit older, it's difficult to find home in a public space. Yeah, I have a group chat of BTS friends that I made on Twitter, and they're the people that I talk to about like everything. And so whenever like something is going on and like I need a break from Twitter, I'm only just talking to them in the group chat. I'm not looking at the timeline or anything. Um, these people don't even listen to their faves. They're not going to listen to us. Absolutely. They never listen to us. You're insane. Hang in there. Love the video. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was a great video. The comparison tweet section was just so revealing. Yeah, exactly. When you see like how similar all of them tweet, like across all of the solo stands, like across every member, you'll realize just how deep this cult is. Is there a possibility that people like you with common sense BTS background get together and attempt to tackle some of this negative rhetoric? Imagine it's not easy, but worth a try. I will absolutely try. If there's anybody else who's willing to join me, even better. I mean, I kind of am trying to do that with my podcast that I have with my friend Delilah. And if you don't know what it is, I kind of show like a picture of our official Twitter page in the beginning of my video. So if you just go back to that, you'll see it in my intro. But yeah, I'm trying to do more stuff like that. So yeah. Um, yeah, it's hard to keep fighting back against mindless sheeps that keep on repeating the same exact thing and twisting it to no recognition. Yeah, it's just ridiculous the way that they continue to repeat themselves. Best way to ignore block, block, block. Let them talk to a wall. They can't. They want to someone to reply back so they can twist it. Yeah. Yeah, I've just had to learn to debunk their methods in other ways. Sometimes I just yeah, most of the time I just do separate tweets rather than like directly interact with them. But like sometimes people directly interact with them and like want to ratio them, and that's fine too. But it just depends on like your limits, mental health wise. So just do what you can. Podcast details. So my podcast is called Talk with Army. If you go back, yeah, like I said, if you go back to the intro of my solo stand video, you will see that I left a screenshot of the our Twitter page. So if you go back to the beginning of the video, you'll see in my intro when I'm introducing myself that there is a page. It's called Talk with Army. It has like a very purple color scheme. But I will spell out the at for you so you can find it on Twitter. Hold on, let me go back to it. Although fair warning, we were total amateurs when we started, so the sound quality is not that great in the beginning. It starts getting better after episode 10, so please just keep that in mind. But yeah, our Twitter at for our podcast channel is studio underscore 090713. So again, that's studio underscore 090713. That is our podcast page on Twitter. And on Twitter, we also have a link in our bio where you can see all the streaming platforms that we post to. So you can easily access it through there. Um, and yeah, Jin also is literally the youngest young to ever young among the mandatory recruits because of the extension. He was already beyond the max age, so now he's mat young for everyone. That's true. That's very true. So I can imagine like everyone in that like training camp probably sees him as like a very much a big brother figure, the way that he was for BTS. What's your next video gonna be about? That's a good question. I'm still thinking about it. But I will definitely let you know. I might post some army logs here and there if I want to, but that's not going to be my main focus. It'll be whenever I feel like it. But in terms of like the next video, in terms of discourse, I know a few people wanted me to do something related to the shipping community. That would probably have to be like another big project that I will keep for a bit later because that's going to take a long time to research. So I'm probably looking for like more like of ideas that probably take less time to plan. So I will have to think about that. I think I had a few ideas written down on my phone or something. I might look at those as well. Or I might do something like music related, like you said. Like if you guys were suggesting about like the Cypher series and stuff. So I will figure out what I want to do. Is there a recent episode of your podcast? Are you going to do more video essays? We are currently on a break with our podcast because it was actually so I could work on this video project. That was the main reason why we were taking a break. Because like I was just juggling too many things at once. But our most recent episode was from March 26th. And yeah, we have currently um 63 official episodes, and then also there's a segment that we do called Army Anonymous where people anonymously submit to a Google form like concerns that they have about like the fandom climate, and then we read them out and for our listeners, and then we talk about them on the episode. So that was our most recent episode, and we that was our 21st installment of Army Anonymous, and we were like posting bi-weekly. Like it was like we had a proper schedule. um but we're gonna come back probably soon because now that I'm done with this, I can probably get back to focusing more on the podcast, which I'm excited about. I would have loved to join a podcast. I've been told I was meant for it, but I don't have all like the tech stuff and I'm shy. You really don't need that much tech stuff at all. Actually, when we started, we were total amateurs with like barely like any high quality stuff. Really, all I would suggest you have is like Audacity, which is a place to record your audio, and just maybe like I had a $20 mic. You literally don't need much at all. Get a $20 mic, download Audacity, and that's pretty much it, really. You don't need much else to start a podcast. I'm telling you, it is that easy. I wouldn't discount yourself because you don't have like high quality equipment. Cause like even this microphone that I have here was like $50. Like I saved for like maybe a couple weeks to get this. I promise you, like you don't need to have like high quality materials to do anything. I mean, even me for this video that I edited, the solo stand video, I was a total amateur with editing, but like look where I am now. So yeah. Um, Thank you. I love your podcast so much. I think I listen to every single episode. Oh my gosh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you for your kind support. I love seeing our listeners out and talking about like what they like about our podcast. Um, we got to choose our fights and how to apply all together. Since I've seen that desist on that rhetoric once army has tired them out. Yeah, you just have to choose your battles. It's really about choosing your battles. It's crazy. Or maybe a video about how haters like Black Nuna Speaks that keep accusing BTS slash army of racism and other humanitarian tragedies because JK threw away a plastic straw. What? They tried to say that he didn't care about the environment because he threw away a plastic straw. That is something that I definitely need to dive into because what is that about? I will keep that as an idea too. Um, I will definitely keep that in mind. But yeah. Um, okay, so what time is it? Oh, I actually have to go very soon. So I will actually probably start wrapping up right now. Because I've pretty much gone through all of the sections that I want to talk about. So let me just conclude the video and give like some final thoughts basically. Um, so overall thoughts about doing this project. It was a very long time coming. And I spent a lot of time doing this, and it took me so long to figure out how I could execute it the best way that I can. And also, if I was doing it at the right time, and do I have my facts set straight? Like, I constantly thought about all of these different factors and second guessed myself multiple times. But eventually, I decided that this was an important thing to share, and that's why I shared it. And I know that there's a possibility that solo stands could find this video and link it back to me and realize that, oh, the person who made this video is the person that we have been targeting this entire time. And maybe they can go back to targeting me. So I understand that there is a risk in doing this because I'm now further exposing myself to solo stands because of the fact that I am now putting myself out there. And I understand that. Um, so am I kind of sort of risking my peace of mind and my mental health just to get back at solo stands? Yes. Yes, I am. Do I regret it? No. Uh, I think that this is just something that had to be done. And even if it ends up with me getting jumped by solo stands again, it's been 5 years. There's nothing that they can say to me that they haven't said already. I've experienced the best and the worst of it, and I decided that whatever risk that there was in putting this video out, the fact that armies need to learn about this, I prioritized it even more. I think that the biggest priority for me was the fact that armies needed to learn how to defend themselves against solo stands and the type of rhetoric that they spew, so that when it comes time for them to experience a solo stand encounter for themselves, they are equipped with that knowledge. I think it was very important that newer armies had that information. And I think that if it's at the risk of me getting jumped again, at this point, I don't really care. Um, Thank you for your hard work in this channel. YouTube needs more rational armies like you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just like at this point, I just think that really like regardless of whatever solo stands can do to me, I think what's more important is to look at what they can do to other armies, what they are doing to BTS, what they're doing to the perception of the fandom. And I just think that this is just something that had to be addressed. And I just don't see enough talk about it on YouTube or other platforms. And I just think that I had to add my 2 cents. And I really tried to put in as much information as I could. I tried to put in as much receipts as I could and really explain these things in the full context that they're in, so that people understand just how solo stands are able to twist narratives to however they want. Like, I needed people to understand the way that solo stand minds work. And so, with the response that this video has gotten, I'm really excited that I was able to do that in a way that people were able to easily understand and learn from. And so the fact that I've gotten all this response, and the fact that people are saying that they've learned a lot of things from my video, I think that means I've done a good job. Obviously, I'm not perfect, and maybe there would have been a better way for me to do this video, but I personally think that the version that I have right now is the best that I could have done. And so there's no use in looking back and regretting. I'm happy that this has come out, and I'm happy that it's gotten the response that it got. And hopefully, people will be able to use this for many more years to come. I hope that my video continues to age well. That's my biggest hope with that, and that people can use it no matter what year it is. I'm Because I tried to make it so that, like, the information was not going to become outdated. I tried my best with that, and so hopefully, um even 5-10 years from now, people are still looking back on my video. That's what I'm hoping with it. um Boris City has also created great video essays asking for a fandom cleanse. And Crystal on her channel, Thoughts, is also discussed in depth over multiple videos. Yes, I watch both of those channels. And yes, I very much agree. Go check out those channels. They are very good at explaining things. There's also Boris City's newest video regarding, like, well, it's not her newest video, but I think her second newest video, of the way that, like, BTS solo projects have been perceived by, like, the fandom and, like, solo stands and whatever. I actually am kind of, like, a little bit backlogged on her videos because I was so busy with this one. So, like, the last two videos of hers I actually need to watch. So I will be doing that when I have some free time, actually. Um, but yeah, I thank you very much for all of the support that you guys have been giving us. They've been giving me, sorry, because it took a lot to be able to do this project, and the fact that I had all this encouragement along the way was, like, it really meant a lot to me, more than I think you guys know. So yeah, I'm seeing all of you guys' messages in the chats, and I'm really, really appreciative of I guess the faith that you had in me, that I would be able to tackle this in a way that would be great for other people to learn from. I've been always trying to focus my account to education and discussion regarding BTS and army related topics. And so this is just, like, another facet of this that I hope I will be able to continue and keep up as I stay a fan of BTS. So I guess with that, yeah, I really should probably go. I have somewhere to be in, like, 30 minutes. So I'm unfortunately gonna have to cut off the live here. I definitely did not keep to my time limit that I had in my head, but I tried my best. So I will be leaving up this replay permanently on my channel. You will be able to access this whenever you want. I will not be privating it. So anyone who had to leave partway through, or anyone who just wasn't able to watch this, you will forever be able to come back to this video. And I will probably keep doing these behind the scenes videos whenever I release another video. So I hope you guys will continue to stay tuned for any other projects that I have going on with my channel. So yes, thank you so much for tuning in to my live stream, and I really, really appreciate you guys being here. And yeah, I guess I will see you on the flip side. Bye.